Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with our community development meeting tonight. Today's date is May 8, 2025. And if you're on the phone, if you could just please mute your telephone. Today's date is May 8th, 2025. The time is 6:04 p.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I also would like to open up with some remarks. The way this public hearing will work tonight is that after the community development representative gives their presentation, the applicant, because we're going to combine both of the properties into one hearing, the applicant will have up to 1 hour, 60 minutes to make their presentation. After that, I will call on people to provide public comment. During the comment portion, I ask that everyone please remember that each person wanting to speak is allotted 3 minutes to speak. If they're speaking on both of the issues, it'll be 3 minutes for each issue, for a total of 6. When your time is up, a timer will sound, and we ask that you please finish your sentence quickly to keep things moving. All comments and testimony will be civil and respectful. Address the Board of County Commissioners and not the audience. Address issues and not people, and refrain from applause as it interferes with the speaker and due process. But please feel free to raise your hand if you are in agreement with the speaker. And with that said, are there any changes to the agenda?
I would just ask that we deliberate at a date certain.
Okay, and we will deliberate. Is that okay with you, Commissioner Eberline? It's okay with me. Do we have a date into the future that would make sense here?
I'm looking one up right now.
Okay. All right. Well, then we will push the deliberations off to a date certain. So tonight we're just going to hear the testimony and comment. Poll for conflicts. Are there any conflicts up here?
No.
No.
And I would ask for June 12th.
Okay. Is that evening or morning?
It would be a morning. We have an evening scheduled that day as well. I'm looking at the master calendar to make sure what's going on that day. So June 12th, we have nothing for the morning or the evening. So I probably would ask that it be 10 a.m. in the morning.
At 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Commissioner Eberline. Okay. So date certain, June 12th, 10 a.m. Okay, on to our public hearing. This one will be for both parcels, ZON 24-0007, Elder Road East, and ZON 24-0008, Elder Road West, and we will begin with our community development presentation of Vlad Finkel.
Good evening, Board. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. Because the Board has decided to combine both projects, I'll try to draw a couple of minor distinctions between the two applications because I prepared 2 separate PowerPoint presentations. So I'll try to cover a lot of ground because there's a lot of information that staff had prepared for the staff report as well as the hearing examiner in their recommendation. Please stop me if you have any questions that need to be addressed as I present each of the scenarios and the details surrounding each of the applications. As you have stated, these are both zone change requests by the same applicant, Brent Otteson and Constance Brand. Just a second.
Mark, can you see?
Really?
Okay. Do you want to go sit by Dave?
The subject parcels are located in the southwest quadrant, specifically at the intersection of Elder Road and Highway 95. One of the parcels, being 27 acres in size, is currently zoned agriculture and rural, and it's bisected by Highway 95. The second parcel that's part of tonight's hearing is the adjoining parcel to the west. It's approximately 33 acres in size. This is the one that I highlighted that is bisected by Highway 95. There is some moderate slope on the subject property. The parcel to the west of this one shown before you has some minor slope as well. This parcel will have access off of Highway 95. The adjoining parcel to the west will have access off of Elder Road. As you can see, the zoning map, we made it very clear when we zoomed out for zoning purposes was to show the fact that the area surrounding these parcels is predominantly agriculture and rural. The closest commercial zoned parcels are approximately a mile and a quarter to the northeast along Highway 95. The comp plan designation is country, and the subject property is located, or the subject parcels are located within the Coeur d'Alene tribe geographical boundaries. I would like to point out that the first parcel that is straddling Highway 95 recently received an approval from the Board of County Commissioners, I believe approximately a year ago. The board granted a conditional use permit for the establishment of a warehouse facility to have at least 3 buildings, primarily for storage purposes. That was granted about a year ago, and at the time, based on the evidence in the record and testimony presented at the public hearing, the applicant stated that that was their intent for the site and that they had no other intentions to intensify the use of that property. With regards to the parcel to the west, which will gain access off of Elder Road, the applicant also received a separate conditional use permit for the establishment of a commercial resort to have an RV park. So both of those applications, I don't know if they ran concurrently, but they were approved approximately a year ago to allow these types of uses on each of the subject parcels. Both parcels do not have any improvements at this time. I think, as if my memory is not mistaking me, I think the parcel to the west may have a couple of structures. I think there is an abandoned structure and maybe a modular home on it, but the parcel that straddles Highway 95 is currently vacant. So these are some of the photos of the parcel that is along Highway 95. As I stated, it does have some slope, rolling hills, some sparse vegetation. During the public agency comment period, we received comments with no objection or approval of the proposed rezone or requirements for or review of potentially needed requirements at the time of development of the property at a later date. One of the concerning agencies was the Coeur d'Alene tribe. They expressly stated that they were in opposition of the request and that it would be detrimental to the character of the area, health, welfare, and economic security of the tribe. The proposal conflicts with the tribe's integrated resource management plan. I'd like to point out that it's pretty rare that we include pre-application notes as exhibits to any of our staff reports, because most of the time when we meet with the applicant, we advise them that if something is likely to be denied or we don't see it as a good project, that most of the time those projects either don't move forward or they're modified in a manner where it is feasible for staff, agencies, and the hearing examiner and the board to potentially approve it. In this case, we were adamant about the fact that this may be problematic with not just the tribe, but we find that it could be susceptible to being considered spot zoning, not just because there is no commercial zoning in the area, but because there's limited zoning, limited commercial development, with the exception of the smoke shop that is at the intersection of Elder Road and Highway 95. During the first public comment period for the hearing examiner, we received a significant amount of public comments, 198 in support, 4 in opposition. Based on review of those public comments, 72 or 35% of people who were in support of the application were from Worley. The remaining over 100 comments were from folks who resided in other cities within Kootenai County, states, primarily Washington and Oregon. The applicant's legal counsel also provided a very thorough legal analysis as to why staff should consider recommending approval of the request based on the review of the Land Use Development Code as well as the comprehensive plan. After thorough review of the legal counsel's analysis, we still felt like it was not convincing for us to change our position simply because we found there to be a lot of concerns with the potential rezone to commercial and a variety or a broad spectrum of commercial uses that could be established on these 2 parcels. The concerns in opposition of the request were with regards to compatibility with surrounding rural character of the community and potential impacts to wildlife. During the second public comment period for tonight's hearing, we received additional 19 comments in support for the first application. I believe in the second one there was at least the same amount in support and at least 2 more in opposition. In any case, the comments were pretty much the same for both applications. Those who were in support cited that there was a need for additional commercial zoning in the area to support the growth and need for a variety of commercial businesses, and that the proposed rezone would be compatible with the existing adjoining smoke shop north of the subject parcels, and that the 2 previously approved conditional use permits for a rental warehouse and commercial resort for an RV park were too restrictive. The applicant would really have to request either a modification or to void both applications to start with something else under the conditional use permit guidelines if they wanted to pursue a different use on those parcels. The individuals who were in opposition, they basically stated the same as they did in the first public comment period, is that there was a compatibility concern as well as concerns with traffic and access off of Highway 95 and limitations on future groundwater quantity supply. So staff prepared a number of points that I'd like to go over that support staff's position on denial of this request. As I already stated, the request is susceptible to spot zoning. The closest commercial zone is 1 mile to the northeast. The subject area is not a commercial node as has been stated by the applicant. A commercial node is a concentrated area of larger scale commercial activity. However, there's only 1 commercial use that exists near this site or these 2 parcels. It is inappropriate to use the existing commercial business to the north of Elder Road as justification for this proposed zone change, as this parcel falls under the Coeur d'Alene tribe ownership, thereby placing it outside of county jurisdiction and limiting county authority over land use development. The previously approved conditional use permits are not a precursor for a zone change, nor do they establish a commercial node. The approval of the CUPs was based on limited scope of potential impacts and does not justify a commercial rezone with unrestricted uses in the future. The request conflicts with the Coeur d'Alene Tribe Integrated Resource Management Plan, and as well as it conflicts with the Kootenai County Comprehensive Plan country designation. With regards to the comp plan analysis, we find that while non-residential uses are permitted, they must minimize environmental impacts and service requirements. The board recently approved conditional use permits with a limited scope of use is determined to be more suitable and less impactful than permitting a broad range of commercial businesses at this location. Staff concludes that the approval of the CUP serves as an appropriate mechanism that restricts development and aligns with the comprehensive plan's goals and objectives while preventing unrestricted by right uses in the commercial zone. Notably, allowing unrestricted commercial use through a zone change would cause the following concerns. Commercial development would potentially create greater commercial impacts through increased impervious surface, traffic, lighting, and other intensive site modifications. Commercial rezoning would alter the rural character of the country designation, and it aims to maintain its focus on agricultural and residential uses. Commercial uses typically require a full range of services contrary to the designation's goal of promoting activities that only require limited services, and that has to do with water and sewage treatment. So the hearing examiner heard this request on March 20th of this year and subsequently submitted a recommendation of denial. Based on review of the hearing examiner's analysis, I'd like to go through this bullet list of items that staff interpreted as their assessment of why these two requests should be denied. They're very much the same for both applications. The request conflicts with the goals and objectives of the country comprehensive plan designation. The Fighting Creek Smoke Shop and Market does not establish that this is an area destined to be commercial. This is an anomaly of the CDA tribe with no reasonably expected commercial land use in the vicinity. The request may be considered unjustified special treatment consistent with the spot zoning findings that benefits only the subject owner and not surrounding community. There's not enough population density to support economically viable commercial development. The applicant can develop the site based on the recently approved conditional use permits for a rental warehouse and commercial resort with an RV park to create economic viability of the site. And finally, there is lack of infrastructure in the area to support a wide range of commercial uses in the commercial zone. And that concludes my combined presentation for both projects. I stand for any questions that you have for me.
Any questions?
How close to the incorporated city of Worley is this project?
I do not have that information. Perhaps when the Coeur d'Alene tribe official.
We can look it up as the meeting progresses.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to confirm, the conditional use permits were issued a year ago?
Yes, approximately a year ago, last spring, I believe.
Okay. And can you kind of just explain spot zoning and why it sounds like it makes sense to avoid that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll approach that one. David Callahan, Community Development Director. Spot zoning as a concern of American law dates back some 70 years. It principally revolves around the idea that you're unjustly enriching one individual's property to the detriment of the community and without the benefit of some overarching improvement to the larger community. So it's effectively unfair.
So, for example, inside a person's neighborhood, you wouldn't want to rezone a particular lot in a residential neighborhood for a commercial activity.
That would be a good example.
Unless there was a real need in that particular neighborhood and they were asking for that.
And there's, an overarching need, and it didn't solely benefit one property owner. That's one of the key elements of spot zoning.
So like a daycare center, for example, inside a relatively
That
dense.
has the direct nexus to the neighborhood, so it wouldn't be spot zoning.
Yeah, okay,
Right,
okay.
right.
Commissioner Eberline, any questions? No? Okay. All right, that's it. So, thank you very much. Craig, did you want to add something?
Yes, for the record, Craig Davis, Deputy Director Operations for Community Development. Smoke Shop to Worley is approximately 10.7 miles.
Thank you.
10 miles?
Yep.
Okay.
That's reference Google Maps.
Commissioners, one last point that I neglected to address. As you may know, commercial zoning does not have a minimum lot size. Therefore, if the parcels were to be rezoned, there's the potential for them to be further subdivided in a manner that would exceed the limitations of rural zoning, which is 1 dwelling per 5 acres. So I want to keep that on the back of your mind for that reason as well.
Thank you. Okay, I don't believe we have the actual applicant who's going to speak, but the applicant's representative, Ray Kimball. You will have 60 minutes, up to 60 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to bring up Courtney Witten for the applicant, and I will take the remaining time after she's done.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yes, please, Ben. Thank you. My name is Courtney Witten, 250 Northwest Boulevard, Suite 206. I'm an attorney at Winston & Cachet Lawyers, and I'm here representing the applicant this evening. So I think Vlad did an excellent job introducing these applications, and so I will not spend too much time on that. Oh, I think I pressed the wrong button. Now we're back. Okay. All right. So we have thoroughly addressed all of the requirements under LUPA and the County Land Use and Development Code in our written materials, and so I am not going to spend too much time on that either. But what I will say is that we have supported our applications with substantial competent evidence that is actually in the record. The standard of review for both of these applications will be whether they are supported by substantial competent evidence. And that's a requirement in order for them to not be found erroneous on appeal, which is an erroneous decision is an appealable decision that can be overturned. So the standard for both of these zoning amendment applications is whether the rezone would be in accordance with the policies set forth in the comp plan. But what is very important for the board to understand is that that does not mean that the application has to strictly conform with either the goals and policies set forth in the comprehensive plan and the designation of country that we have in the comprehensive plan. What the board has to do is make a factual inquiry into whether the rezone reflects the goals and takes into account the factors in the comprehensive plan, but it must be in light of the present factual circumstances surrounding the request. And that is particularly important here because we have set forth a significant change in circumstance that justifies this request. And that is the Fighting Creek Smoke Shop that is adjacent to both parcels. And it is not just a smoke shop. There are, I believe it spans 3 parcels of record, 5 structures, and an illuminated billboard that is easily visible from Highway 95 at all hours. So, frankly, without this, we would not be here. We would not be able to be here making this request. But there is substantial commercial development that has been in this area since approximately 2013 when it was moved here from, I think it was a mile north, presumably because this was determined to be a advantageous commercial location. So this is the factual circumstance that needs to be a lens through which the policies and goals of the comp plan is viewed. So what this body must do is look at the goals and objectives in light of the commercial development and also ask if the designation of country still reflects the goals and policies of the comp plan in this particular location. And we have set forth, again, all of the applicable goals and policies from the comp plan in our written documents. And there are many of the stated goals and policies that this application or these applications furthers. And missing from the hearing examiner's analysis was any mention of these objectives and policies. And she did not weigh them with the ones that she mentioned in her analysis. But the applications don't have to comply with all of the policies and objectives because that would be impossible. They conflict with each other. And so to say that this application doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan simply is just not accurate. The comp plan also is not the zoning designation. So while we have the country designation in the comp plan, that is not the legally controlling zoning law. It is the goal or forecast for the county, but the reason that we're here is because of the commercial development adjacent to both parcels that begs the question of whether the country designation and the current zoning still is in line with the goal and forecast that was set forth in the comp plan when it was adopted. Okay. So again, these applications do not have to strictly comply with either, every goal and policy set forth in the comp plan or the country designation and its descriptors. But it is important to note that these applications do substantially comply with the country designation because economic activities that are encouraged in that designation that do not require a full range of services. And what is often getting left out is that the location of these parcels limits the services that will be available to the future development, which is a limit on what can be developed there. So we're only going to be getting private water and septic. We're not going to be able to build a motel. We're not going to be able to build a college. And that's just kind of the reality of where we're at. So we are within a more narrow scope of services, which is exactly what this descriptor of country designation contemplates. And it's also important to note that the country designation contemplates that more intense uses than commercial would be in that country designated zone. There are assembly and manufacturing plants that are described in the definition of country designation, which is a much more intense zone than commercial and would require more services than a general zoning designation. So to say that this application does not comply with the comp plan just because any commercial zone would require, could contemplate commercial development that has a full range of services. That's not what we're dealing with here. So because of our location, the services that are available to this property are severely limited. And just the reality of that is that there's going to be significant limitation to what can be developed in the future here. Staff also mentioned in their presentation that the hearing examiner determined that the smoke shop adjacent to these parcels is an anomaly, but there is no evidence in the record that that is actually the case. There's a significant amount of land in the area that is under the jurisdiction of the tribe and that the county will have absolutely no control over. It, could be developed into a commercial use at any time, and the county would have no say in that. So the idea that it's an anomaly, again, is not supported by the record and the findings of the hearing examiner. And of course, this board must be supported by facts in the record. This also ties into the hearing examiner's analysis regarding the prior CUPs. And to be clear, the applicant has not argued that the CUPs that were granted a year ago have changed the nature of this intersection and created the commercial use. That's not been our argument. The argument is that there is significant and intense commercial use over 3 parcels that are non-conforming, but they're there and we can't ignore them. And so I continue to hear that we're relying on the CUPs to say that commercial development has been permitted, but that's not the case. So what the hearing examiner also referenced in her recommendation is that testimony from the prior CUP applications. Nobody incorporated that testimony into the record. Again, that was going outside of the evidence that had been submitted, and that was an error for her to rely on that. Staff also brought up the issue of spot zoning again tonight, and case law that discusses spot zoning in Idaho. The primary question is not whether it would be unfair to others in the area. The primary question that the courts examine is whether the rezone complies with the comprehensive plan. That is the question that they look to. And here in this case, the applications comply with the comprehensive plan. And so on review, a court would not look at it and say that it is spot zoning. That's the analysis that the court would do. Secondly, when there is a change in a neighborhood that changes the character of the area, again, that takes the rezone out of spot zoning. And that is exactly what has happened here. We also heard that there's additional commercial zoning a mile north, and we've also got, various uses over 3 parcels of record adjacent to the 2 parcels at issue here tonight, which certainly has changed the character of the intersection into a commercial built environment. So under both of those analyses, this is not spot zoning. And so we continue to hear that. We do not see any legal analysis that's been provided. We just keep hearing it's unfair, it's unfair. But that's not the analysis the court would undertake. Another error of the hearing examiner's recommendation is that she has determined in her recommendation that the commercial development that would be allowed by this rezone would not serve local residents, but tourists. But what's interesting about this conclusion is that the CUPs that the hearing examiner hearkened back to, which she did say reflected the rural character and served the needs of the local population, those are a seasonal RV park and a boat storage facility. And so to broaden the uses that can be allowed in these 2 parcels, that would actually serve this community a lot more than a seasonal RV park who can only serve coffee to the people who are there from May through September. So again, this is not based on evidence. This is based on an erroneous fact, and the conclusion could be overturned. There's also no evidence in the record to support the hearing examiner's conclusion that that commercial development on these two parcels could not be sustained by the local population. And this harkens back to goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, and that we should be serving in these more rural areas the people who live there. And the traffic counts actually support the proposition that the average traffic count is not that much different from the peak traffic count in July. So what this shows us is that there's consistent year-round traffic to this area. We're at the juncture of Elder Road and Highway 95. Again, there was no evidence in the record for the hearing examiner to make this conclusion, and it was in error. The hearing examiner's analysis regarding infrastructure was likewise misplaced. Citing to nothing, the hearing examiner found that in order for commercial development to occur in these two locations, public infrastructure is required. There's no requirement that the commercial development on either of these two parcels hook up to public infrastructure. We have private water and we have potential for sewer and septic. So again, that would limit the scope of development that could occur in the future appropriately for this location. But there's no requirement that the future development hook up to public utilities, and that really has no bearing on any of this analysis. Again, a conclusion from the hearing examiner that has no basis on any evidence that's in the record. Her conclusion is that there will be a detriment to traffic based on the rezone. That's directly contradicted by the evidence. Worley Highway District and Idaho Transportation Department had no objection. Their stated, I think Idaho Transportation Department raised concerns about the CUPs that were granted and that they'd noticed that no work had been done, but they never came out and said, we're concerned about the impact that traffic is going to have here. So again, that conclusion is erroneous and would be likely overturned on appeal. So I am going, one more issue that I didn't put in my presentation, but I anticipate I'm needing to address and have a little more time to do so. So the parcels are both located within the reservation of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, but that does not mean that the tribe has the authority to dictate what the zoning is. So they've cited to a detriment to the welfare, let me look for it. Health and welfare of the tribe. And that comes from case law discussing whether the tribe can basically assert its jurisdiction over fee land that's owned by a non-tribal member and has no other connection to the tribe. And the interesting part about that is that when courts have examined whether tribes have demonstrated that there actually is a detriment to the tribe caused by this zoning, the burden is incredibly high. And there is only one case in the United States where that has been proven. So I'm sure that we're going to hear tonight that this rezone would be detrimental to the health and welfare of the tribe. And just for the board's information, we don't have any evidence of that. And the burden for that to come into the decision is incredibly high. And so, again, that does not rule the day, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Ray Kimball.
Thank you. Vlad, will you fire up my PowerPoint, please? Ray Kimball, for the record. My address is 2104 Columbine Court in Post Falls. Good evening, Commissioners. So I'll just introduce myself because it's not very often that I get up in front of you folks. I've been doing land development. I'm a licensed engineer and surveyor in the state of Idaho, and I've been doing land development for the past 25 years of my career, all of it in northern Idaho and eastern Washington. And for the last 13 years, I've sat on the Post Falls Planning Commission, where I am currently the vice chair. So I understand being on that side of the dais. I understand where you guys are sitting. I understand how hard it is how counterintuitive it is to go through and see the staff report and to weigh evidence, because it's quasi-judicial, right? So you guys are a judge in this case. This is not a legislative thing. Your job here tonight, and this, I know you know your job, but for the people out here, the job is to weigh the evidence that's in the record to determine whether or not it meets the approval criteria set forth in your code, in both state code as well as your local code, and to determine if it either meets it or not. And we have provided in both our application and in the legal brief and in our rebuttal to the hearing examiner's recommendation, all of the evidence necessary to support this application. We have checked every single box, and there's no evidence in the record to the contrary, which is incredibly important. With regards to the comp plan, and I know you know this, it's 150, well, you don't know it's 151 pages long. It is a robust document. And we have gone through, and in our application, we have pulled the relevant parts of it that support this application, and there's been nothing to the contrary in the record. So it meets the requirements of the comprehensive plan. Now, you may ask why we're here tonight, because we've got a conditional use permit for a boat storage, we've got one for an RV park. I'm going to start with the RV park. So I wasn't involved in it. It started in 2022, took a year and a half to get an approval. It's a long, arduous process, cost the client quite a bit of money to do so. Started out as 36 units, ended up getting whittled down to 19. They're allowed to have a coffee stand, but only for 19 units. I mean, that's a Keurig, to be honest. But the reality is that that's a conditional use permit for a failed business. So it's going to cost over $1 million to build it. They're only allowed to operate from May to October. And if they're 70% full, which is generous for that entire time, at $60 a day, which is a fairly high price for that location, and at about a $10,000 or $12,000 per month flat operations cost, that's what it costs to operate one of those things. Their payback just on the construction is over 20 years. That's a failed business. That's a business that doesn't make a single dollar for 20 years. So there's no reason to do it. No reason to do that exact business. They've been conditioned down to the point where they cannot viably operate that business. But what would a commercial zoning on that property look like? What would it allow them to do? So, because what would fit with the area? What are the kinds of things that would serve the community, that are appropriate in scale, both for the location, because that's really important, because if you think about the location of commercial uses around the county, just little pockets of little commercial here and there, they're little niche things usually. So sometimes they're boat storages, sometimes they're coffee stands, sometimes they're just regular storage. restaurants, little C-stores, things like that. They're little businesses, but what would it allow for in this location? That probably would be scale appropriate, location appropriate, coffee stand that's open to the public, a restaurant, maybe an expanded RV park that's not just 19 units, but something that was actually viable. Across the street at the boat storage. So I submitted to staff yesterday an approved approach permit from ITD, putting in a turn lane. We have made progress on that. That is a project that is likely to be moving forward, and we have an approved site disturbance permit for that. So we have turn lane into it, approved by the state, and the intent is to move forward with that. But under the conditional use permit, they're only allowed to do storage. That's it. Can't winterize a boat. Can't put up more than 3 buildings. They can't have a little business shop off the side to repair a boat motor. No business, they're completely not allowed. Couldn't even do that under a conditional use permit under that zoning. So storage only. Are they allowed to sell boat bumpers? Would they be allowed to hire four local kids to run a boat launch assistance? Sunup Bay Boat Launch just down the road, if you've ever been there in the summer, is an absolute gong show. It is crazy. There's boats and trailers and everything parked everywhere on the road, all haphazardly. It's underparked for the amount of traffic that it gets. And yet a little business where we got 4 young folks coming back, maybe back from college, whatever, running back and forth from this area to help people launch boats, pull their trailer out, park it at the boat storage area. And then when someone's coming back in to load their trailer back up, call up, go down, get them out of the water. So is that is that a business that would benefit the local community? Absolutely. Benefits everyone in that vicinity. The type of businesses that are going to happen in this location are going to happen organically, and they're going to benefit the community. And it's really important that we think about the community support. So of the 88 respondents that had addresses from Micah Bay south, okay, 90% were in support. Of the 220 respondents, 95% were in support. It has overwhelming community support. I can tell you that in my time, in my 13 years on a planning commission, I've never had that kind of, I've never seen that kind of support for a land use application. It demonstrates that the community is in support of this, and it bears, it should weigh very heavily in your decision, because the comprehensive plan even speaks to that. Comprehensive plan speaks to making land use decisions that are supported by the public. Staff did mention the subdivision or allowance for a subdivision and the minimum lot size. I've talked to my client about that. This is not an end run to try to get some sort of a residential subdivision. And we'd be okay with a zoning development agreement that restricts residential lot size, if that were the case. So that's completely fine. Ms. Witten went through all the legal aspects. There was some talk about wells, and you're probably going to hear some of that tonight. Water being an issue. While it's not an approval criteria, there's no evidence in the record that supports any lack of water. As a matter of fact, The well logs in the area that are in the record, so they were submitted by my client as public comment, indicate that there is adequate water in the area. More importantly, there's no expert testimony, there's no hydrogeologist here that says that those wells are interconnected and one is going to drain the other. So it's supposition and conjecture and not applicable in this case. It is not part of the approval criteria. With regards to traffic, if there were traffic issues, ITD would have commented. But the fact is that changing the color of the map doesn't change any traffic. The color of a building permit changes traffic. So the type of use changes traffic. And those are the kinds of impacts that are dealt with at building permit, and they're dealt with at the time of the site disturbance permit applications. So that appropriate mitigation is dealt with at that point in time. It is interesting, if we look at, I look at the county zoning map, or the county GIS, that zoning map, quite a bit. And I find it interesting that when you get to a city, there's no color on the zoning map, in the county zoning map. It's just whatever the background is. So it's an aerial photo. The same probably should be for the reservation. Tribe and tribal members are not under county jurisdiction. And so when you look at that map and you look at whether or not it's owned by the tribe or it's under the, or it's owned by a tribal member, the zoning on the zoning map and our GIS doesn't even matter because they can go do what they need to. So what's important to remember is that the built environment, it's kind of like, as a matter of fact, it really is just like the county next to a city. So if this application, there's county zoning for a marina right next to Blackwell Island. That's right, it's the only red on the map for a long ways, but it is right next to city commercial zoning. That's the exact same thing here. It's tribal commercial zoning across the street. And it is a like use. So and really I think that's, I was gonna go on and on and on, but I think that's probably good. I know you've read the record and you've seen the other presentations, so I won't belabor the points. So thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I think the only one is, and you alluded to it, that once a building permit was filed, that ITD would then get involved.
Yeah, that's correct. So what happens is that any approach onto onto the ITD's right-of-way, whenever there is a building permit or a site disturbance permit or any change of use for that approach, that requires an approach permit through the state, subject to the state code, all of their requirements, so spacing, traffic mitigation, turn lanes, all of that stuff.
So I ask because that means we don't actually know what they're going to say until the use is brought forward, the specific use.
So what we have done with our approach was specifically for the boat storage is we have submitted an application for essentially the highest use that is allowed on, so it's a commercial use with 100+ trips per day, which is the highest use that the state has in their matrix. And that was what was approved. So.
Any questions? No? I have some questions for you. I guess the first one, I just want to confirm that the smoke shop is tribal land and not subject to the county's zoning and development rules?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, so the Board of County Commissioners had no say in what the tribe decided to do at that point in time?
No say whatsoever. It'd be as if Canada were next door.
Okay. You mentioned that your client would be open to limiting or restricting the property on subdevelopment. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct, for residential subdivision.
What about for commercial, subdeveloping for additional commercial lots?
I don't think that's an issue either. So if there's a 10-acre minimum or whatever it is in the current zone, I don't think that would be
Okay.
an issue.
Mr. Chairman, there is no size in the commercial zone.
Yeah.
That's why Brad brought up the subdivision.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about the RV spots. You mentioned that it was with about 30 where it was viable, and it got whittled down to 19.
I don't know where it's viable. I don't know the number of RV spots where it's viable. I know that the 3 RV parks that I've been involved in building in the last 6 years or 7 years, they have all been in urban areas. So one in Liberty Lake, one in Post Falls, one in North Spokane, all 3 on highways.
Yeah.
And that's a tough row to hoe, especially when the limitations is from May to October, and the sites are very small.
But you said that it got whittled down to 19 and that it would take 30 years to recover the investment.
It's, down to 19, it takes about 20 years.
Okay,
to recover
20
the
years. So at what point, can you explain the timeline of that? Because I remember when we issued the conditional use permit for this, but was this 19 whittled down after the board issued the conditional use permit, or was that beforehand?
The original, my understanding, so based on the research I looked at today, so I went through and looked at the application. The original application showed, I think, 36 or 40 RV spots. And having not been involved, I don't know why it went from that number down to 19, but that's where they ended up at.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to disparage that process and what happened. It was just what happened. And that's okay. I mean, it's where we are today. They haven't spent it, they've spent a lot of money on consultant fees and all that stuff to get there. But they haven't spent $1 million on construction yet. So they're not, pulling a plug now is a good idea on that rather than lose that much money for that long.
Well, I guess what stands out to me, and the same thing for the boat storage, is that I don't believe that it went from 30 down to 19 after we issued or agreed to So the applicant saw this all the way through, knew exactly what was going on. When they applied for the boat storage, they didn't ask if they could winterize. They just applied for boat storage, right? So why go through this process if it doesn't work?
That's a great question. Winterization, any business under county code, under either the rural or the agricultural zone, storage only is allowed as a conditional use permit. Okay, not winterization, not any other business associated with that. You, as a county commission, or as commissioners, you couldn't, under county code, approve a conditional use permit that allowed winterization, that allowed any of those things.
Perfect. Then why apply for the boat storage facility? If you can't do these things and you know you can't, why go through this process only to change 1 year later? I'm trying to understand what happened. What's changed between a year ago when this board basically approved it,
Right.
materially, to now we want to go to commercial, which offers this spectrum of possibilities, because I think the board was very open to finding a way to approving it, yet it changed within a year. And I'm trying to understand what is the material component, knowing all these factors when you go through the conditional use permit process.
So, my client got bad advice from their consultant.
Their
And-
land consultant or their business consultant?
Land consultant.
Okay.
And so, at that point in time, they were led, they're good, hardworking lay people. And, Brent owns a logging company. I grew up, I got uncles that are loggers. And they don't do land development. I do. When they ever have land development questions, they call me.
You're talking about the applicant, right?
And the applicant, 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. The applicant called me up, and asked me what to do about this property, and I said, zone change to commercial. That's the right thing to do. It's at a commercial location, it's got a commercial node, it's at an intersection of two major, a highway and a major street. It's got commercial right across the street. That's absolutely the right thing to do. It allows you to pivot and do the right thing. And it enables you to utilize your property to economic benefit, to provide services to the local community, to build a small business, which is really what our economy is built on around here, is small businesses. And it allows local people to live, work, and benefit from those services in that area. That was my advice at the time. And it didn't happen. And they were, staff wouldn't support it. This is probably the first time in my entire life I've ever seen staff tell me that, any staff ever tell me that they would not support an application before they even saw it.
You talking about the conditional use permits?
I'm talking about the zone change tonight.
Okay.
Pre-application?
Pre-application. I've never had a staff say that they would not support an application before they even saw it.
And this is after the conditional use permit was
Conditional
issued.
use permit.
I'm still trying to figure out what's changed. You know, does your client have an intended use for the property? I mean, they had an intended use before for both of them. They realized, okay, it's not economically viable to do this. So do they have another idea of exactly what they want to do? Why not go through another conditional use permit?
So
process?
permit-wise, so boat storage is that's a viable business. It's viable. They want the ability to expand it as necessary, as demand happens. Not have to go through a conditional use permit that takes 1.5 years, as well as being able to provide the other services like boat repair, winterization, all of those things. Not allowed as a part of a conditional use permit. Definitely allowed as part of the commercial zone. That's their intent. That's what they would like to do. Across the street, I couldn't tell you, because I know the one thing I do know is that 19 units RV park is not viable. They want to figure out something that is going to be viable and do it.
Yeah.
That's what we're here tonight asking for.
And would you agree that the tribe has their own set of rules for how they manage their land compared to the balance of the county?
Absolutely. The tribe is just like a city.
Yeah.
They have their own zoning code. They have their own development codes. They've got all of their own. They've got all their own codes, and that's their privilege.
And so, if you're obviously familiar with state line, if you lived on the Washington side, and because of the restaurants and gas stations over on the Idaho side, would the argument still be to the Spokane County Commissioners, they're doing it over there? So because of that, it's not spot zoning or anything like that. So the argument is that you must give it to me here in Washington because they're doing it in a completely different jurisdiction.
I think it's not necessarily. I think the proximity is the key in this case. So we're what, 2 miles probably from the
I mean, because
Washington
it's
border?
very common when you drive across state lines, you'll see businesses on one side but none on the other.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll see it. You'll see that very often. The built environment is important here.
Yeah.
The fact is that you can't drive down that highway and not notice that Fighting Creek store is there.
Yeah.
It's a commercial use.
I understand what the argument is. I'm just trying to, look at it from, okay, so basically, if the tribe decides to do something on their land, if you're an adjacent landowner, by default, we should be approving what that owner wants to do with their land if it's a similar use to what the tribe is doing on their sovereign land, in essence. Because that's the argument I'm hearing, is that it is not spot zoning. It's the smoke shop is there, and because they're engaged in a commercial activity, you must give us the commercial or the commercial zoning because of that, even though it's its own entity, it's separate, it doesn't follow the rules that we have, it has their own set of rules. No different than a state line.
I think the argument is that the tribe using their jurisdictional authority determined that that was an appropriate location for commercial use. The county the county comprehensive plan and our application supports a commercial use in limited scope, like we've talked about, at this location. And the fact that there is an existing commercial use, whether or not it's under the jurisdiction of the county or the tribe or a city, makes it so it's not spot zoning.
That it's less relevant.
So it's essentially, across the street is essentially a commercial zone under the Coeur d'Alene tribe, under their jurisdiction.
Yeah. Those are my questions for right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any others? Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move into public comment. So I'm going to start with, what will we start
Go
with?
back and forth, in favor, against, in favor. You're gonna do
I want
all?
to stick with like all. We'll stick with all in favor
Okay.
right now. And I'll just start off with reading at least the comments that we have here. And you'll have to forgive me if I don't pronounce your name correctly. I have, is it Harry Vors? Vovis, okay. Would you wish to speak? Okay. Do you want to speak about both of the properties?
I would love to speak about both of the properties. My name is Harry Vovis. I live on Ness Road. I live 2.5 miles from the proposed location. I don't want to just repeat everything that they've been saying, but I will repeat a little bit of it. I believe that Fighting Creek smoke shop, store, gas station, the fireworks stand and all that, I don't care if it's a separate jurisdiction or not. You know, when I drive by it 2, 3, 4 times a day, I don't drive by and go, wow, this is a separate jurisdiction. It's a commercial facility, and we love it. I love it. And the people that live in Worley, that don't live out next to us, I wonder how many of them drive by and they pull into that gas station. It can be busy, but it's accessible. None of us want to use the gas stations in Coeur d'Alene. We love it out there. We also love having the convenience store. And I would really like to see some more business out there. You know, I've been out there 40 of my 50 years in that location. And I remember when there was approximately 10, 12 families within a 3-mile radius of that intersection, which we were one of them. Just off the top of my head, just kind of counting them as I drive by, not actually looking at a map, I would say there's at least 50. In addition to that, all that land to the north of it, I believe, has been lotted off into 20 acres, and a bunch of those fields have been lotted off. So there's the potential for probably another 50 or more households out in that area. We need some business out there. Now, I don't want to see a bunch of tire shops and everything every half mile on Elder Road. That's not what they're talking. We're not talking industrial zoning. We're talking commercial. I'd love to see a restaurant there. I'd love to see a coffee shop that we could use when we drive by. With all the people out there, we need some businesses out there. We need something that benefits everybody. Not to mention the lake, you know, like what he was saying about the people that have the boats and stuff down there going down to Sunup Bay. They could use a business like that. We do need some business to benefit the homeowners and residents. And I wanted to point out a few things. And I said this before, so has my wife. I think it's very disingenuous of the tribe to say, well, we don't want you to have a commercial zone there, even though we have one right across the street. And you go 4 miles to the south of that, and there's this big, beautiful casino covering, what, 100 acres?
So, I'm sorry, sir, can you address the board?
You know, so they got that big casino out there. I think it's very disingenuous to say we're going to have commercial, but you can't. And I also want to point out something else. Some of the people that are opposed to this, I wonder how many of them, if they owned that piece of property, would be in here petitioning you as well to have it zoned commercial. I can think of a couple of them that I know for a fact would. And I won't name them here. I've said enough of that. The government's job, in my opinion, is to protect its citizens and to help people be good neighbors. And I have known the people that are petitioning the applicants most of my life. And they will be good neighbors. They will not do things that will harm the neighborhood. They will keep everything they do will be nice, it will be professional, it will be clean, it will be well taken care of. And they will seek to help the people in the community, not harm the people in the community. They're good. They're lifelong residents as well. I think I'm going to wrap it up with that. Do you have any questions for me?
No, it's comment, so you get to kind of say your piece here, so thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Commissioner.
Oh, okay, okay. Next up is Amanda Douglas, wishes to speak in favor.
If I'm going to speak on both parcels, do I get 6 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My name is Amanda Douglas. I am born and raised 4th generation here in Kootenai County, and I am raising the 5th generation kids now. I have been a local business owner for myself for over 10 years, my parents over 30 years, and my grandparents for longer than I can remember. My husband, I married into a law enforcement family. My uncle-in-law was a county prosecutor for 30 plus years, and then he went and prosecuted for the tribe for 10 to 15 years. So I have a little bit of a background. I am here to advocate for rezoning these parcels. This location is a natural crossroad. It is situated at the junction where travelers choose between heading to Spokane or going to Coeur d'Alene. That is how it is. You have to turn there or you go to Coeur d'Alene. It's not a patch of land. It is a gateway to what our society is. I personally spend a lot of time in Worley. I live in Hayden, Idaho, but I am a hunter, hiker, boater, fisherman. I grew up, since the day I was born, on that commercial piece of land that is 1.25 miles away. I grew up riding horses, hunting, playing in the creeks, babysitting my cousins, running across 95 to the old smoke shop to go get a snack, a sandwich, a piece of candy because I weeded for 10 hours. And never once was it looked at as commercial, but it is commercial. It was a gas station. And if you sit here and say that a gas station is not commercial, then it just doesn't make sense. What I do know about this area is I know the people. I know who lives there, and they have to travel 30 to 40 minutes to go get essential needs. This shouldn't be the case. It's 2025. Yes, do they choose to live out far away for the peace and quiet? But it would be nice to have something small for the quick essential ibuprofen for my kid that has 104 fever that isn't 40 minutes away. That's huge for all these families living out there and moving in. This corner, which also sits on the tribe land, is vastly underserved. Right now, there's one gas station offering fuel and tobacco products. I personally know the owner. Nick Matheson. My cousins are related. I have 3 cousins that are blood tribe. They are related to Nick Matheson. I have spoke with Nick Matheson constantly over the years about this piece of property, and he wants it very badly. He wants to purchase it. He owns the gas station. He owns acreage all over that area. He does not want to pay the price of what it's worth. And he wants to turn it back into tribe land so that he doesn't have to pay that price. That is not fair to the landowner that has owned it for over 25, 30 years. They paid their dues. They have owned it. They've kept up with it. They've paid their taxes. They've paid to Kootenai County what they've needed to do. And now they are in a position in their life that they can develop it. And yes, did they want to do a RV park? Absolutely. If you've ever been on this piece of property, it is not agricultural. It is hilly. And that piece of property specifically, I am a hunter. I bow hunt, rifle hunt, coyote hunt. I'm in Worley over 200 days a year hunting. I pay the tribe permits to hunt. And I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't hunt that piece of land. It's not viable to do something on. So yes, did she have an idea to do this? Can she do 19 parcels or 19 RV spots? Yes. But she would also like to make the most out of her land that she has invested in and now has the opportunity, now that her kids are gone and this and that, that she can develop it and serve the community. As a born and raised local, I have seen the amount of growth in the area. As much as I would love to push back on it and keep this piece of God's paradise that everybody decided they want to come to myself and my family, I'm faced with the inevitable growth, which I have chosen to embrace and be a part of as a local business owner. And if it's done correctly, then it's
I
positive.
think your time,
Oh, sorry. Oh, God.
so you can just finish up with a sentence here.
All I would say is my family's born and raised a quarter of a mile away. And I've been there, loved the land, and it's not detrimental. There's nothing that is going to hurt this piece of property or the community around it. If anything, it's going to bring help and positive growth in that area.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I do have a question, and Harry, I apologize that we were able to ask some questions on this. So, Commissioner Duncan, did you have a question, or Commissioner Eberline? You mentioned ibuprofen. Does the smoke shop not sell that?
As somebody who is in Worley all the time, I have stopped by the smoke shop, and what Nick had proposed when he decided to build that and move it from down below, he was going to have food and this and that. And there is multiple times that I've gone in and there is something not available. His main priority that I have seen personally, this is a personal comment, is gas and tobacco.
Yeah, and no coffee either, right?
No, and there was supposed to be a sandwich shop, a restaurant, a coffee. I have never been able to purchase. I've hiked and
Just no.
There's nothing. After hiking 8 miles and wanting something to eat, there's nothing but gas station Gardettos or something.
Because I hear people saying it'd be nice to have something, but no one can really pin down exactly what it is that they need.
Oh, I have it. I'm sorry,
know.
I didn't get there.
So, but I'm sorry. Well, if you have
Question?
if you have a very quick list that you want
Yes,
to read.
let me find it real quick.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if you want, you can submit it to us as well.
And I'll give you my notes. A convenience store, an Ace Hardware, something where the people that live around there, I remember growing up and my grandpa would have to go get something because a piece broke in the barn or this and that, something,
Okay.
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 essential needs
Okay.
for the surrounding area, the farmers,
And one last question.
yeah.
You know, you kind of say that you always appreciated the rural nature there, right? And it would be nice just to have something. So if this board says yes, you can have something, then should we just say yes for every other request thereafter? And that eventually the people who move to get away from everything, everything will come after them. So where is that line? How do you define that?
Right. So I'm a communications major, a political major, and a business major. So with that, that is your guys' job to decide what is, yes, is it going to add growth? But you're on 95. 95 is a 4-lane highway
Okay.
from Coeur d'Alene to Worley. And in Worley, there isn't a grocery store. There's a gas station, and you can get tobacco or a bag of Doritos.
Okay.
And
All right.
so something with,
I understand.
yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, if you want to turn
Yeah.
in your notes, then we'll put them into the record.
Sorry, I didn't get it. I barely got to page 2. There's another.
Thank you.
And you'll,
Read into record as B 1001.
thank you. Next up is, gosh, I want to say Leanne Brillard. Wish to speak? In favor?
Good job on my name. Most people don't say it right. Thank you. I didn't know I got the opportunity to speak twice. I had 4.5 minutes and had to skinny it down to 2.5 minutes. So, thank you for the opportunity to hear my support for the autism zone change. I am Leanne Briard. I was born and raised in Dalton. Our family moved out to Fighting Creek when I believe I was 15. Old highway. Got to learn to drive on the old highway. It was pretty great. Most would ask why I would support this change. I hope all of you got an opportunity to read my letter that I wrote. Because, yeah, Connie might be my sister, but overall, my support letter stated that it all revolves around opportunity. I hate all the changes here. I don't go downtown Coeur d'Alene. I don't drive around. Every time I go out of my small little zone, I'm like, where did that come from? Huh. My husband will say, it's been there for years. Where have you been? But I have seen the opportunities that it has provided for us in our community. I grew up here in the poor days in 1980. We were a very recessed area. My father-in-law moved their HVAC business from International Falls, Minnesota to Hayden, Idaho. We're a third-generation heating and air conditioning company. We were given a great opportunity as we have prospered from the growth of this area. In my letter, my support letter, I believe that there should be more services located in the Rockford Bay Fighting Creek area. As in the heating and air conditioning business, my employees work out there every single day. They're 30 minutes from town. I will tell you that I've stopped at the smoke shop twice. I probably will never stop there again. I was on my way to go to golf. All their coffee was empty and their prices were twice as much as town. I don't do that. So I understand why my employees supported the change, the zone change. They were really bummed when they were told that their support didn't count because they didn't live in the area. They work in the area. They're out there for 10 hours a day. I mean, we do all the houses all around there of all that growth. Many people travel through the area and they have very little choices to stop and grab a coffee or a snack or anything they need. This opportunity could open jobs for the local workers the opportunity of having the boat storage in the RV park could open jobs for young local workers to work close to home, or maybe local people who live out there that might want to have a part-time job to be able to not have to drive in and out of town on Highway 95. I do understand and respect the wants and the needs of the Coeur d'Alene tribe to preserve their land. But the Coeur d'Alene tribe has also capitalized on the many opportunities and prosper from growth. These natives own amenities used to be affordable for those of us who live here. But now they are not affordable and they cater more to the wealthy. A round of golf is over $200. Circling Raven is my favorite place to golf, but I can't pay $200 to pay golf. When they allowed the new gas station to be built on the rural corner of Highway 95 and Elder, they changed the landscape. I don't go that far very often and was like, what the heck is happening? So they changed the landscape and the feeling of that corner to more of a commercial spot. What a great opportunity to have a nice RV park where locals can go and enjoy the beauty of the area. I was very disappointed in the limitations that were put on the RV park. My husband and I, we camp a lot. We'll drive 10 hours and go to the coast over the weekend. In every single one of those parks that we go to, they have yurts, they have tents, they have small RV, they have big RV, they have space for people to come. And the one thing I will tell you that perplexes me about that is that cars will roll in, pull all their stuff out of their trunk, put out their stuff for one night, head out the next day. They had a great time. They had some family time. People from Seattle, Portland, because we're over on the coast a lot. They all come over for a day just to get out of the busy of the city. Without more spots or services to help support the development of the park, it would be very difficult for them to be successful out there. I feel that her opportunity to develop a beautiful place, not a concrete parking lot as the casino provides, has been taken away from her with so many restrictions. Sorry. Brent and Connie have lived here all their lives until the timber industry changed. They had no choice to move, or they had no choice but to move to an area where they could make a decent living. But they held onto their properties here in hopes that one day they could return home and have the same opportunities that others have had in our growing area. In every home that Connie and Brent have owned, they have manicured their property to be like a park. And I have no doubt that they will create an amazing place for people to come and to enjoy. All of us would be hypocrites if we complained about the growth in our area. All of us have prospered and have a better place to live, to play, place to live and play than where we came from. We have to trust in our elected officials to continue to make good choices to keep our area beautiful, but still a desirable place for people to come to work, to retire, and enjoy our amenities here in North Idaho for all of us. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? No, thank you very much. Next up is Connie Brand. She wishes to speak and she's in favor.
Good evening. My name is Connie Brand. I am the owner of these two parcels, and you asked my planner the reason why. What changed? Well, I'm going to tell you what changed. 3 years ago, I contacted the community development to ask for a zone change. I was met with discouragement from the moment I walked in there and spoke to Mr. Vlad Finkel. I was told, have you contacted the tribe? I said, why would I contact the tribe? I own my land. Well, they hold jurisdiction. You are discouraged the minute you walk into Kootenai County's planning department. You were told nothing will ever go through. And if you look back over every applicant that is turned in out there, it is denied because the tribe touts this hurts the health and welfare of the Coeur d'Alene tribe. I grew up here. I've lived here. My family, Brent, is homesteaded from the 1890s. His mother lives on the same property that has been allotted for 136 years. Our roots run deep, very deep. We have tribal heritage that the tribe does not want to recognize because my mother-in-law was born after a cutoff date. But her grandfather was enrolled Coeur d'Alene Indian. So that's the reason why. My planner, when I went in to apply for these, I was told, yeah, this is great. It's a great spot to open an RV park, boat storage. I was lied to for 3 years and hundreds and thousands of dollars. Like Ray said, we're just simple people. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get taken advantage of real quick. I applied for 46 spots. 3 years later, I was told by my planner, we can't do 46 spots. I asked for tent camping. I asked for a coffee shop. I was told, you can't do that. The county will never go for that. This is 3 years later and $75,000. I said, well, he goes, you're only going to be able to do 19 spots. A septic system for 46 spots is going to cost you $500,000. Did he bother to tell me from day one? No. He told me 3 years later. I was too far into it to back down for my CUPs. What would you have done? I have been approached by the tribe, by Nick Matheson, by a neighbor who is opposing this project. They want my land and they want it bad. I refuse to sell to them because I know what will happen. This will be the most developed northern part of the reservation. They want that corner. I spoke to some people in Worley. And speaking of that, I spoke to every comment that I turned in. I spoke to every person rural in my area and in the town of Worley. I talked to a gal who told me we would love an RV park, but our tribe is too stupid to put one in. I was told by a very well member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe before he passed, the tribe wants your property because they cannot find water in Worley, and that they are looking for a 180-unit Indian housing complex, and your property produces over 100 gallons a minute. They have no restrictions on what they're going to put there. I refuse to sell my property to them, and I will never sell my property to them. For that fact, my neighbors should be thankful that I haven't sold to them because they would have no say what took place on it if I sold it to them. The neighbors have all turned in comments to you that there is no water. Well, one day I decided, well, I'm going to look and see what actually my neighbors have. You can go to the Idaho Department of Water Resources and hit find a well. I pulled up every neighbor, which is 18 of them in a 3-mile radius, what their well logs are. Out of 18 wells, 2 of them produce right around 5 gallons a minute. The other 16 produce above 12 to 100 gallons a minute. I have 18 well logs here, if you would like to look at them.
You can turn them in.
They claim that traffic is bad, that this will create a lot of traffic. Traffic has always been bad on Highway 95. It's the north-south corridor. You're going to have traffic. And it's not just because of one single development. Wildlife. Development impacts wildlife, but that's true across the entire country. The wildlife problem in where I come from it's a bad deal. It doesn't matter if it's a highway, a freeway. They're starting to build underpasses and overpasses for wildlife. When you have traffic, you're going to have wildlife problems. Some have accused me of exploiting this property for profit. That could not be farther from the truth. I bought this land to raise my family. In 2003, I was in my young 20s. I purchased 70 acres. My husband was a logger, and I had 3 small children. I could barely afford it, but he told me, one day, Connie, this will pay for our retirement. So we purchased it. We struggled. I've held on to it for 25 years. My children are gone, and I'm able to now do something with my land that will help me through my retirement. And that's what I have. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? First of all, I'm very sorry to hear about how the whole process worked, with the conditional use permits. I am kind of curious, though, was it your previous consultant that told you that the RV park wouldn't be a problem and that you wouldn't have these kinds of expenses? Or how did all this stuff?
No, he did not. He said, this is great. This will work. No problem. He saw money.
Yeah, and you didn't.
Saw an open checkbook that would fulfill until he got to the final 3 years when he finally submitted the application to the county. that would then say, oh, by the way, a septic system costs $500,000. When I started doing some digging going, this doesn't sound right, I contacted Mr. Kimball again and went over my stuff. I was, back up just a second on this issue about my planner. My planner told me that ITD requested that I take out a deeded access on my 33.7 acre property for the RV park. He failed to tell me that until the day I was sitting in here in my CUP. I didn't know that you could have access to what was turned in, comments from anybody. He did not tell me that. So I am sitting here and I was told, you're going to have to remove your entrance to the RV park that was deeded in a land deal. I said, my husband's, what are you talking about? He's never going to go for that, ever. The CUP got approved. I contacted Ray Kimball and I said, they're going to take my approach away from me. I had no idea. I was completely lied to for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Mr. Kimball, thank goodness, we had enough time to go back and to do the 28-day change with Mr. Callahan. My attorney and them worked together, and my approach was saved because it was an actual taking by the county.
And you have every intention of continuing the boat storage facility?
But I was not told, you can't wash boats, you can't fix boats, you can't do anything. I didn't even know that till 6 months ago. That's why I'm here. Because what am I to do? My neighbors are all, my neighbors around me, not one of them are local. They've all moved in from California or Montana or somewhere. That property, when I moved there, had nobody. The store was not there. The Fighting Creek store was not there. It was very quiet. Now today, at my property, when I go home tonight, I have to turn my blinds because their 50-foot LED billboard illuminates my entire park. I can see every deer that walks across my field because it is illuminated. It was ruined. And yes, I have every intention to put in a beautiful RV park and a boat storage and to serve my community. So I might be able to have a place to come back home to and retire.
So you still want to put the RV park in?
Yes, I do. And I'd like to add a coffee stand that not serves 19 people in the park. I would like to be able to serve my community.
And that's the biggest holdup right now, the difference between the conditional use permit and the zoning application?
And maybe a few more spots, tent camping, glamping. I don't intend to turn this into, 35 acres of 10-foot spots. I want it to be an enjoyable place where you could come and feel that your neighbor is far enough away that you don't see them. I have 33 acres. 19 spots is a little over an acre and a half of my property. There are spots to put, beautiful spots for people to come and enjoy, and to maybe have a restaurant that serves not only the public, but the RV park. If you go to an RV park, most RV parks have a restaurant, have something for their people. You can go across the street to get soda and that sort of stuff if they wanted to, but if you need to go get propane at Fighting Creek, can't get it. They have nobody to pump it. I intend to serve the community, to provide a beautiful place that people can come and enjoy. I didn't want to sell it. I didn't ask to subdivide it. I didn't ask to do anything. Now, if you were to ask me, okay, your plans are still to do that. Now, what if you guys turn me down and I decide, well, you know what? I've got 3 children and 5 grandchildren. You guys passed the new division law. Well, I'm going to give 5 acres to each one of my kids and 6 of my grandchildren. That creates 8 spots that quick that they can turn around in 5 years and sell with no subdivision. I don't want to do that. I've never wanted to do that. If I wanted to do that, I would have done it a long time ago, but I couldn't afford it. I had 3 small kids, and now I'm at a place in my life where I can.
Ms. Brand, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Is that all?
I got a few more here.
Then can we take a break in between?
Yeah, probably a 10-minute recess.
Yeah, because we've got a lot more.
Yeah, we'll do a 10-minute recess. 7:44. We'll be back at 7:54. We're going to continue with public comment here. Next up is Kate Harold, in favor and wishes to speak. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. I'm not super prepared. I'm Kate Harold. I've lived out in Rockford Bay for almost 30 years. We're here to support Brett and Connie. We've known them forever as neighbors and friends. A couple of points I just think would be important from a perspective who lives out there. The last time I was in this room was when Black Rock was approved, and there has been a lot of change with Rock Creek and Black Rock. It's not the same as it used to be. It's very busy, and so I do think that we have a lovely rural area, but there is growth coming, and I think it should be allowed for them to have that growth. The other thing that I think is important is that when they bought that land, the smoke shop was not there. It was back with the old Fighting Creek, and I used to work there. And then they tore that building down. He could have built his smoke shop there, and in fact, he did. There is a building there that's vacant, and they use it for fireworks. But he chose to move that location, I would imagine, for the proximity to the Elder Road. So when Brent and Connie bought that land, there was no smoke shop there. And there was no giant billboard, and it is a large billboard. So I don't think you can refute that idea that when they bought it, nothing of the sort was there. And then it is a pretty large operation. I mean, it's got diesel trucks. It's a big commercial truck stop. It's big. Another point that was made with the supplies that they have that they offer at the store, that is true that it is a small store, and so sometimes I'll even have to call to see if they have something, which is fine. But it would be nice to have other options. Honestly, there's not a lot of places to get supplies out there, and that is true that it would be nice to be able to get a little something if you didn't want to have to run to town. The other thing that has been mentioned is that they said that the smoke shop was an anomaly. I'm not sure that that is true. You know, the tribe has had a lot of development, and I was even a teacher down in Plummer for 15 years, and they've done amazing things. There's no question that the tribe has amazing developments and have done some pretty cool things. So I do think that they want to develop their region to make it profitable. I mean, they do benefit from the tribe and from the profits that brings in. So I don't personally think that that would be considered an anomaly. And so I think they should be allowed to develop their property. It literally is right across the street. It is not going to be offensive. And there is the hill kind of comes down, and there's going to be trees, and where their neighbors are, there's going to be some barrier and some, greenery and trees. They're not just going to clear cut it. So I just don't think that it is going to be the big eyesore that people are making it out to be. And it literally is right across the street from this big truck stop diesel gas station. So I personally think it would be it'd be beneficial. And I do think they should be allowed to develop it commercially. I do think that just the 19 slots is not feasible, and it's not fair that Connie and Brent have to go through this and not be able to use their property, and literally right next door, it's just, it's a free-for-all. So, and I mean, we have talked about the billboard. It is really big. It is true. I mean, when I used to drive to Plummer every day when they put that up, it used to you had to adjust your eyes when you were coming down the highway in the morning. I'm not going to lie. It's really big. So I just don't think any argument that it is going to be an eyesore could have any merit whatsoever. Because one, they did not buy that property when that gas station was built. Okay, it was a rural area. It was the corner of 95 and Elder Road, and there was nothing there. Okay, and so they did choose. My good girlfriend sold Fighting Creek to Matheson, okay? He did build a smoke shop. He tore down that old building that was like 100 years old, and he built a smoke shop right there at Fighting Creek, okay? But for whatever reason, they chose to move it to, I would imagine, a more, profitable area. It's right on the corner of Elder and 95. They get a lot of business from Spokane. And so that is how that smoke shop came to be. So when they bought that property, that they did not have any idea that was going to be there. So that is why I think they should be allowed to do their business, and I think we can benefit, and it's not going to be an eyesore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Stephanie Brand, in favor, wishes to speak.
My name is Stephanie Brand. I live at 4347 North Alderbrook Drive in Coeur d'Alene. I am Connie's mother. Don't always agree with her. But on this, I do. She would call crying, "Mom, what do? I have to get a permit from Idaho Transportation Department." And she had to get a permit, pay for the permit, pay to have it engineered, before she even had the conditional use permit. Why would you require her to do all this, not knowing if it would even be viable? I think that was wrong. Same thing with, and I don't speak well, so I get forgetful and I'm old. The health department. She had to get the permit for the health department before she had hers, the right to even, which she did because she was told she had to have these things or they would not move forward. That's wrong. Okay, back to my age. I'm 87 years old, and I've lived within 15 miles of Coeur d'Alene my entire life. I've never moved away to go to school. I have lived and owned property either with my parents or ourselves here. And I spent 30 of those years out at Fighting Creek, on Fighting Creek. And that's a long time ago, 30 years. And it was rural, and there was nobody out there. But you can't drive now up Volvo Road. There's houses everywhere. Down to across Ness, they went down Ness, across the field, and down into that canyon. It's full of homes. There's a little community down there. And I do personally believe in those 30 years, the growth I have seen, and I really dislike change, but it's part of, if you do not evolve, you die. And people will come and they will need to have some services. And this is an ideal spot. It's absolutely beautiful for what they would like to do with it. Highway 95 was finished, the construction in 1939, and at that time, that portion from Coeur d'Alene to Palouse was built on the railroad line, and the old Fighting Creek store was the railroad station. And that is why there was just about one parking length, barely a parking length, from the old highway to the porch, because it was a railroad station. And when the highway went in, it became a store. So since 1939, there has been a service in that area of some kind for the few people that were there. And we have a lot more now, and it will grow. I don't care what they say, you're not going to stop the people from coming in. And the people that come in do not want the change. They do not want the environment changed or what they say will harm the animals, but they don't realize they are the ones that are bringing it in. If they didn't come, we wouldn't have that problem. But because they come, we need to move ahead like progress does, and whether we like it or not, and provide services. Is it the right one? Not for me to say. That's all I know. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Next up is, I believe it's Rebecca Rice, in favor and does not wish to speak. If you change your mind, please let us know. Next is Corey Harold, in favor, does not wish to speak.
Excuse me? Is that Gary Harold?
Is it? It might. Gary Harold, excuse me, yes.
Yeah. Can I just give my time to Connie?
No, but if Connie wants to.
Rebuttal. She'll have a chance to
Yeah,
speak
you
at
can have a
rebuttal.
chance to speak at the rebuttal, since you are the applicant. On your form, it didn't say that, so we weren't 100% sure, but you're the applicant, you can speak. Gary, did you want to speak?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Ray Kimball, applicant representative, in favor and wishes to speak, but I think you've already spoken.
Those were put, I think, on the wrong file.
Okay, yeah. Courtney Witten?
Yeah.
Witten, yeah.
Yeah, so they've already.
Yep, okay. Anyone online who is in favor and would like to speak?
Chairman Matar, we do have two people on Zoom, a Heather G. and a Lewis James. If either one of you want to speak for the applicant, please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Hi, yes. My name's Lewis. I would like to speak regards to the rezoning.
Can you state your full name and just what city you're from?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Lewis James. I was born and raised at 12462 Sunup Bay Road, just 1 mile from the proposed rezoning. Is it okay for me to start?
Yes, you have 6 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm appreciative of the opportunity you've given me and the community tonight to provide comment on the rezonings at Elder Road East and West. I'm speaking tonight in agreement with our county's hearing examiner, Joanne Woodard, county staff, and the Coeur d'Alene tribe, and hopefully some of my neighbors who recommend a denial of the proposed rezonings. Tonight, I wish to speak briefly and sincerely in opposition to the rezonings. Normally, I write letters in support of development, so this is definitely something new for me. I believe the merit of these rezonings should not solely be based upon the voices here tonight, although they are of great insight. Rather, I wish to speak to the county's own comprehensive plan, which was approved by the Board of the County Commissioners, which is a shared vision for the county to develop responsibly rather than the desires of individual property owners. It's in this plan that it calls for encouraging industrial and commercial development to occur within cities rather than areas of city impact. In your own plan, it states that outside of these areas, growth can occur only if it's non-urban in nature. Moreover, the plan states the purpose of the zoning is to carry out the policies of the comprehensive plan and to provide standards of orderly growth and development and avoid undue concentration of population and overcrowding of land. Many tonight have lamented the sprawling, unmitigated growth we've seen in recent years, but claiming that for this specific property at this specific time, it's different. I don't feel the same way. The future land use planned by these parcels, including my family's property, is country in the comprehensive plan. This land use is intended for agricultural activities and residential subdivisions, which are designed not to stress the county's infrastructure, and as a result, prevents raising our taxes. A secondary use is to promote economic activities that minimize environmental impacts and do not require a full range of services. My family has, myself included, assumed these rules would be honored by a comprehensive plan, as what good is a plan if it cannot be followed? If this proposal was to move forward, there would be no guarantee that the development would be of utility to the community. While I am sure the applicant is in good faith promising to deal delicately with the land, they cannot promise this for future owners of the same land. In other words, once you've changed the zoning, it's hard to go back. Finally, there have been two stories told tonight by the applicant's attorney. They claim that they're not required to abide by the comprehensive plan because the tribe hasn't, although it is their own ancestral home and they're going to be here always. They also state, however, that you should follow the comprehensive plan because obviously, by the looks of things, the Fighting Creek store is commercial. They claim that the Fighting Creek store doesn't provide benefits only to the owner. However, the Fighting Creek shop economically benefits the Coeur d'Alene tribe, which is a community consisting of 2,000 people. Developments from the tribe can benefit the whole. They claim it's not a spot zoning and wish the commissioners to follow the comprehensive plan, but if you look at this very plan, it would tell you otherwise. While I understand it might be difficult for the applicant to provide concrete details on a plan, as maybe they need more time or more certainty to develop financing, I ask the commissioners to kindly consider the surrounding neighbors of the property, as well as the Coeur d'Alene tribe and your own staff who do not wish this rezoning to move forward, as what use is a plan if it's not followed. I ask you to kindly take all of us into consideration when making your choice tonight, and I thank you all.
Thank you. And just to clarify that, you are against or opposed to this, correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. Would the other person online like to speak?
Heather G., would you like
No, my name is Heather Griffith. I am also opposed, but I do not wish to speak.
You do not wish to speak?
And I live in Worley. Yeah, I live within 3 miles of the proposed site.
Okay. Is there anyone else who is in favor who would like to speak?
Chairman Matar, we did have one person just join in the last 5 minutes, Lisa Lee, if she wants to speak.
Lisa Lee, would you like to speak in favor of the zoning change?
No, I'm opposed. Thank you. I want to speak opposed.
Okay. All right. If no one else wants to speak in favor, we will move to opposed. The first person I have is Tyrell Stevenson, opposed and wishes to speak. You have 6 minutes.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Tyrell Stevenson. For the record, I'm the legislative director for the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And I'd like to add a couple maybe factual points for people's understanding that might fill in some gaps. It's been mentioned the Fighting Creek store used to be right next to Fighting Creek, about a mile up the road from where it is now. And it was there for a long time. And something happened about 20 years ago. It was, by all accounts, a pretty good thing for the area, and it saved a lot of lives. And that's when the highway was straightened and realigned. That also made it unsafe to have the store right there. So that is why a tribal member, Nick Matheson, moved the location from there down to Elder Road. So it is a much more suitable location for it. I think there's without raising the temperature on this, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out. This property is over 70 acres. The Fighting Creek store is on less than 5 acres. The entire operation is on less than 5 acres. Changing the zone from ag and rural to commercial has a couple of effects. As has been mentioned, there is no minimum lot size when that happens. And I agree wholeheartedly with something that Mr. Kimball said during the hearing examiner's hearing, which is that commercial zoning allows 1 million different uses. And it's been stated here that the applicant is committed to a certain number of limited uses, and that may be true, but under commercial zoning, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And as the person online mentioned, that is also true, there are no restrictions on sale either. So the applicant could be very well-intentioned and very committed to a certain course of action, but if the zoning changes to commercial, that doesn't restrict a future owner from changing course and doing something completely different. It doesn't restrict to these certain uses. I've read through all the comments, and and I do see a common theme of people desiring to have some specific limited services on the site. But changing the zoning to commercial doesn't limit the uses to those specific, desired outcomes. It opens it wide open. This area is actually pretty similar to where I live over by Metamont. And during the previous hearing, Metamont was used as an example of how, a commercial node could be located. The Valley Mart's over there. It's on 3 acres. If a neighboring landowner with 70 acres wanted to change from agriculture to commercial, that would be a huge deal. Without getting into the details of jurisdictional differences between the tribe and the county, the magnitude of this application, I think, is difficult to understate. I think one of the last things I'd point out goes to the conditional use permits. The tribe did oppose those applications before. We had some pretty specific concerns about some of the density and the ability to handle wastewater, things of that nature, and traffic control. But at least with a conditional use permit, we all knew, all the neighbors knew, the county knew what the plan was. And I think that at least was a good thing. We could see what the intended use was. There's a process for it. There's a lot of foreseeability, a lot of input. That is much different than a rezone. Going to commercial, as Mr. Kimball aptly said, allows for 1 million different uses, even with the stated goals there. Even if the applicant is amenable to a development agreement with the county, that's not what is before the board tonight. What is before the board tonight is an application to change the zoning from agriculture and rural to commercial, and that's it. And there's really no in between with those choices before the board. So even being sympathetic to the plight of the applicant and the struggles that they've gone through to get this across, there is a kind of a gulf there. I think that gulf could be bridged through a number of different alternatives involving the community development department, without going all the way to a commercial zone change. Lastly, I would just point out, just to without raising the temperature, the Coeur d'Alene tribe is very, very deliberate and careful about its development plans. And if you drive through the reservation, you'll notice there are developments, but the tribes have been very deliberate in where those occur. They occur where there's existing infrastructure that can handle it, and they're very careful about preserving the rural character of the land. The tribe owns a lot of land along 95, and those developments are concentrated to where they can handle it, where there's already infrastructure in place, and where they can serve the communities. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those, but I'll just keep it brief.
Any questions?
I have one. You've heard testimony that although the Fighting Creek store is there, it does not contain things that the community needs. Is there any plan to expand what that location offers?
Commissioner Duncan, so the store is operated by a tribal member, and it is independently operated. Is subject to the tribe's zoning and regulations. It's heavily regulated when it comes to the sale of tobacco products, for example, and fuel. And I know that the owner has plans to expand the offerings when it comes to food. In fact, I've seen on the billboard that they're going to start offering burgers and fast food. But I'm not sure about the specific plans for more convenience items. I'd be very happy to take the information I've heard tonight and relay it to him, because it sounds like there would be a need for that and a desire from the community.
Okay. That's all I have.
Just one question. Over time, I see on these particular situations, the tribe is generally opposed. In fact, they're always opposed. Is there any situation where the tribe would be okay with something, because my fear is that if they're always opposed, they're always saying no. Are they saying no because it's a real no, or are they saying no because that is the standard answer, in which case it dilutes the meaning of no, if there is absolutely under no condition a yes?
It's a great question, Commissioner Matari. There have been a number of objections from the tribe recently, for sure. And I've spent a lot of time just in discussions with Mr. Callahan about that, particularly over the last 5 years. And a lot of that has come about in response to a couple of big changes and big applications. One of them was very near, in fact, adjacent to this property, which began as a major subdivision that was trying to go around the rules and through a series of minor subdivisions. And it's something that just really caught the attention of the tribal council as to the urgency, the demand that's been placed in recent years on the area. The tribe is deliberate about the specific applications that it files oppositions to. We don't oppose all of them. We're short-staffed right now, so we do not have a planning director. So all the applications come to me, and we don't oppose every one of them. This particular application rises to another level, just because of the size and the magnitude, and the major effect that it would have on that area there.
Yeah. I ask because a boat storage facility is a pretty low intensity use, and the tribe opposed that. And so, how low of an intensity do we have to go, in essence, until eventually we get to a yes? That's my concern with the continuous no. And I understand the serial, development and, subdividing and all that stuff. But
I might add one thing to that too. Oftentimes, just to add to the frustration the applicant was expressing when it comes to process, by the very nature of the process, we're in a position where it's either yes or no, because that's just the application that comes to us. And when the tribe finds out about it, which we're very appreciative of the community development department for involving the tribe, it's after the application has been filed. So that's what there is. It's not a negotiation, if that makes sense. It's either yes or no. It's either you don't oppose or you oppose, and try and explain the reasons for it.
So there's no way they could say we would be open to it under this set of conditions, otherwise we would not agree to it. I mean, because it's feedback, it's not absolute. We're seeking feedback from various agencies, including the tribe.
Yeah, but it's still not a negotiation.
It's not a negotiation, but it's something that we would look at under advisement as a consideration in these matters.
I think other agencies actually do that. I think ITD's done that, and so have the highway, not just highway districts, but the fire districts will say, here's a set of conditions that we can work with, or Panhandle Health or IDPR. So I think that would be very helpful to the commission to have a better understanding of what would make it acceptable.
And only because we've had a situation where it was a yes and then it became a no, and nothing had changed materially.
I'm familiar with that situation.
So that's why I ask these questions, because I don't want to disregard the tribe's thoughts on these matters, but if it's always a no, then it's hard to understand, is it a legitimate position or is it a standard answer?
I really appreciate that feedback, and since we've lost our planning director, the process has been a little more difficult, but we have an application period open. We're trying to actively hire a planning director, and hopefully that process would go a lot smoother. But I really appreciate that feedback, and I'll work closely with Mr. Callahan on it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any other questions? No. Thank you. Next up is Thomas. Is it Bubler? Bubelek, excuse me. Opposed and wishes to speak.
All right. Good evening. My name is Tomas Bubilek. I live with my family at 13230 West Elder Road. So we are the western border directly next to one of the parcels. They're actually west from the 95. I spoke here last time, and we wanted to talk about like how we love it and everything. We are recent movers here, and there was, after talking to some neighbors, I mean, there was a huge problem that actually arose, and that was the actual water issue. And I'm sure you're gonna hear it from a couple of them tonight. We actually ran out of water a couple times, and we started up like investigating. We thought that there was the water pump was problem or something was happening, and then we started up talking to the neighbors, and they actually shared their experiences with it. And well, just by physics, water flows down. So the neighbor above us, he has 12 gallons a minute. We have 50, and one of the properties has 100 on the bottom. So just by laws of physics, if you punch a bottle on the lowest point of a barrel, the water level starts dropping down. So basically, that is my biggest concern about it, which is it's going to influence all the neighbors above if something commercial is going to be and how much water is going to be using if something is actually open below us, which would be even like the 19 bay RV park. That's basically, even if it's used half the time and not all bays are always used and everything, we're talking about at least 5-6 families, 5-6 homes actually using some water. So that will influence everybody above. And so the next issue was mentioned already. That was the traffic. So, what is the RV? RVs are 30 plus feet. So if they're making a left turn, gassing, fueling, changing positions, going ingress, egress out of the property, it will create traffic. The next issue would be the commercial permit, so which is not very much regulated. And basically what it opens up, it's almost like opening a lion's cage where the legislature, if something else is going to be putting in, which is not exactly desirable, then the legislature has to actually play catch up with it instead of just being a driving force. So that would be my concern, but that has been already mentioned here. Also, the size of the property, both properties, they count, like as mentioned before, 70 acres up. And in comparison to the Fighting Creek, which is, I don't know, 3.5, something like that. I don't have the numbers on it. So it's a huge chunk of land. It's not a corner of a highway or something. And, the fact that actually it's just a gas station with, in my experience, at least my family goes down there and actually picks up a couple of sandwiches and Coke and all this stuff. So they do have some variety of food, which would be great to actually have a little bit more maybe. But so that would be, I don't think so that really counts as a commercial hub. I mean, in that case, any gas station would be actually the commercial hub. And I know it has been mentioned here before that you have to travel 40 minutes or 30 minutes somewhere to get Tylenol or something like that. Well, we've just said that it was, 10.3 miles to Worley. So by 60 miles an hour, that's actually 10 minutes. So why not developing, Worley? I mean, that's already a city or a town. So that would be something that my suggestion would have been. And back to the issue of actually developing the property as a commercial property. In case of a sale, the person or a company that actually is buying the land, they would actually be looking for profit because they would buy it as a commercial property, right? So even though the owners might have the best intentions to develop the right thing, what's the guarantee that that particular company or individuals would be doing the same? So I mean, this is something that's actually directly at our property, and it's actually right next to us. So that's why it's a huge concern for us. And that's it. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do. What is the elevation difference between your property and the property we're talking about?
It's a hill. So I would say, I don't want to throw a number. I hate throwing numbers, but I would say at least 150 feet.
Okay, and then
least.
how deep is your well?
It's 315 or 325.
Okay.
320, yeah, 315 or 325. And we are, like I said, we have 50 per minute, and the neighbors above us have 12, depending on the depth of their well.
Commissioner Eberline, do you have any questions? No. I'm just curious, what size is your lot? How many acres?
16 acres. 16 and a half, yeah.
16 and a half, okay.
Yeah. It's directly west from the west property we're discussing. It's a 95 lot, and we are right next to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be willing, I mean, because we went through a rezone down there, and where people could opt out or, to keep from having their property rezoned to, I believe it was agricultural?
Yeah.
Mm.
The rural,
From rural to agricultural?
and many people did opt out.
Yeah, I think most of them
Yes.
opted out. I guess for a 16-acre parcel, that really wouldn't be a concern as much.
Well, I don't know if he opted out or not.
Yeah.
It
Did you
may have
opt?
been
Did you opt
agricultural
out from the zoning from rural to agricultural?
We're just trying to catch up with everything with our property as is.
Yeah.
We didn't even know that we had that option. We were just trying to catch up with everything. We are zoned
Yeah.
as agricultural, and we are just trying to comply with it and just
Okay.
get our trees and everything looked at and making sure all the taxes and everything is in order.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bublik, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Next up is, I believe it's Leander James, opposed and wishes to speak.
It's showing that he is rural.
Honorable Commissioners, applicant, my name is Leander James, and I respectfully submit my testimony into the record. My address is 12462 West Sunup Bay Road, Worley, Idaho, approximately 3/4 to a mile away from the subject parcels. I'm testifying in my individual capacity tonight on behalf of myself and my family. I'm married and have 4 children. My wife and I have raised our family on our family farm at that location since 2001. We purposefully moved there for the rural and country environment and the county designation under the comprehensive plan. The name of our farm is Sunup Bay Farms. We commercially hay approximately 100 acres and log approximately 30 acres. We cultivate 2 acres in produce, have an orchard with apples, pears, plums, and other fruits. We have 100 laying hens, and we sell to the local horse and cattle owners. We sell hay to local horse and cattle owners. We sell produce, eggs, and firewood at our honor stand on Sunup Bay Road. It's a stand where people come by and we put the produce and eggs out and so forth. I started that with my kids years ago to teach them how to run a business, and it actually flourished and has developed into a local gathering point for the local community, and they buy the eggs, produce, and so forth there all throughout the year. And also firewood that we sell on the side of the road. A lot of that goes down to the folks on the water that burn it there. To my surprise, our income from the stand has grown considerably, and we service local seasonal and regional customers that frequent the honor stand, and also we sell at farmers markets. One of the things that attracts the folks to our area is the country environment and the rural environment. And I think when you start to develop in the area with a commercial development such as being proposed here, and a rezone to commercial, it's going to degrade that environment and hence impact us and our family. My family respectfully, I and my family respectfully oppose the application to rezone these parcels to the commercial use, and I will add an important footnote here. I am mindful of the struggles of individuals with their efforts, such as the applicant here, but there are rules here that apply, and which I'll discuss in a moment. The rezoning conflicts with the country designation and the environment in our area and the comprehensive plan. I want to talk about specific areas of conflicts. I mean, one of the arguments here is that you have the Fighting Creek store, and that's commercial, therefore we should have commercial and develop it. The Fighting Creek store and that development there actually cuts against their argument. And I'll tell you why. Because when that was put in after we moved in, we saw a significant influx in traffic and infrastructure use. A lot of it coming from Washington. They come out through Elder Road. These are a lot of the boat people, but now it's all year round. And I can tell you, because I see it every day, they overload the trash bins at Sunup Bay, and if you haven't been down there, you ought to go down and look. Every day they are overloaded and overflowing, and it's a high wind area. The trash scatters across the hayfields, my hayfield. I'm out there all the time picking trash out of my hayfields, and I do it for my neighbors. It's really a problem already because of the increased traffic and use of the infrastructure. This application I don't think should be looked at in isolation of what's happened recently. We had a rush on the land in COVID. On either side of us, we had 180 acres on one side. Paul Stearns, a good friend of mine who has since passed away, who farmed that land adjacent to my property. And then we had the parcel across the road that was, I don't know, a very large parcel. All of it in Timothy hay. My hay is in Timothy hay. Those parcels have now been sold off. Paul passed away, and the family sold it off to a developer adjacent to our property. North of us, it's been sold off, and you all know the great history on that one during COVID when there was an attempt, as Mr. Stevenson discussed, an attempt to circumvent the subdivision ordinance and to create 5-acre parcels and so forth. Fortunately, that was toned down some, but it still resulted in an enormous change to our area for those of us living there. For my family, my kids who wandered those hills during their childhood, chasing elk and the wildlife and looking at the wildlife. There's been, but back to the effects in the country environment and the infrastructure. There's also the roads that have been degraded. I feel bad for the highway district. They are splintering at times because of the increased traffic. I mean, there's cracks in the roads, and had at a time I would have got you pictures of all this. I see it every day. Our ground out there is clay soil. It's good for growing hay for the most part, but it's not good for septic. It's really terrible. It doesn't permeate. It turns into concrete this time of year. I mean, it really does. And you know this out there. You cannot have the septic systems have to be special systems. My point there is the effluent runs off into the lake. So I respectfully ask you deny the request. And let me just end with this. I've heard people concerned about getting ibuprofen and other items at the Fighting Creek store. I've always gotten what I needed. And they pass through, and maybe they can't get those items. What I'm concerned is the country environment and my family's future and the family farm. That's what I'm concerned with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, did you sign the opt-out or did you get rezoned?
I signed the opt-out, although I'm not going to use it. And I signed it because I thought it was incredibly unfair that people were put in a position of not opting out. They don't opt out, and then their neighbors get an economic advantage by opting out because there's more value to the property. And thinking of myself, I wouldn't have opted out. Thinking of my kids and future generations, I thought it was unfair to encumber them, to put them at a disadvantage, when in reality down the road, they may need to use it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Isabel James, opposed, and may wish to speak. Did you want to speak?
Sure.
You have 6 minutes.
Hello, my name is Isabel James. I am 21 years old and I've lived in Worley, Idaho for pretty much my entire life. There was just a couple points made that I would like to comment on, I guess. The first point I heard was that there needs to be more jobs for the younger population in the area. I personally never found there a lack of jobs. For me and my siblings, I know several people who work at the gas station locally. My siblings have worked down by the bay. And many farmers have hired many of my siblings and several neighbors to help with the haying and all of that. And so I don't see that there's necessarily a need for more jobs in the area, thus not as much need for commercialization in that way. I would say that this land is the tribe's, and I do agree that the tribe should have the final say in regards to that. In regards to the boating situation, I've lived on Sunapee Bay pretty much my entire life, and there was a comment made earlier saying that the roadside is full of boats and things like that. What I've noticed personally is that there's a lot of boat trailers, which does pose a problem with the parking down there. But with new boat facility, there would need to be at least somebody bringing back up the trailers or something of that sort if there were to be a facility to store boats, because if there are more boats or more boats going in the water, and there's going to be more trailers along the road there, and so that is something that I'm personally concerned about. And in regards to Fighting Creek not providing all the amenities, I personally really have felt no lacking there. It's certainly not Costco, that's for sure, but if I needed buttermilk for our morning pancakes, or frankly, there's coffee there, there's plenty of food. There's a drive-through there that you can go through in the back. I've never found anything lacking there. Those are just my comments on things today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Ms. James, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Michael Hill Sr., opposed, and may wish to speak. And you have 6 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mike Hill. My family owns 60 acres adjacent on the east side of Highway 95, adjacent to the subject property. And as I recall, that property was Millhorn, and it was allowed to be subdivided into the 20-acre parcels. And when we bought the property, we were made aware that it was within the tribal boundaries and that there was conditions. And we investigated those conditions and found them completely in line with what our idea was of rural land and the precious commodity that it is. And so I hear these attacks on the tribe and their rights, and it, quite frankly, to me, it's appalling. The tribes have been around here for a lot longer than we have, and I respect their rights. They have a fraction of the tribal boundaries they used to have 200 to 300 years ago, so I have the utmost respect for them. And if I'm allowed to live on land that's within the tribal boundaries, I'm going to have nothing but the utmost respect for them. The other argument I heard was that somehow this land was a bad return on investment. Therefore, we should be allowed to rezone it. And it makes me think when I drive around, I drive all around the western states and other rural lands all around, and I see a lot of old commercial properties that were probably spot built years ago before there was zoning laws, that now with the spot zoning restrictions wouldn't allow that. And they're abandoned because they're no longer viable. Most of the commercial activity is centered in communities like Worley or Plummer or Coeur d'Alene. That makes sense. You want to keep those areas consolidated where it makes sense. So I had this vision just listening tonight because I live next to this property and we're getting ready to build a house there, and I was thinking that's going to look really weird 20 years from now or 15 years from now when I look down and I see abandoned buildings there because they're not viable as commercial properties. There's plenty of other properties or land, like just 10 minutes down the road in Worley, that would be viable commercial properties, or just down the road where the casino is, where there's a big, beautiful interchange across Highway 95 that we took a little tour there earlier today. If there was going to be a demand for commercial properties in that area, it looks to me like that would be a viable place for it to be. So, and anyway, that's really all I had to say. I'm adamantly opposed to it, and I want to see rural lands stay rural lands.
Thank you.
For my life and my grandkids.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Good, thank you. Next up is Dylan Lee James, opposed, may wish to speak. Come on up. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you. So good evening, commissioners. As you know, my name is Dylan Lee James. I'm 20 years old, a grad student. I grew up on 12462 West Sunup Bay Road with the rest of my family, just south of the zones of dispute. Though I currently live at state line on the Idaho side, at 5266 West Gumwood Circle, Post Falls, Idaho, 83854. So I've seen what honoring proper jurisdiction for commercial land zoning looks like. As you know, I'd like to speak tonight in opposition to both of the proposed rezonings. It is clear that the county designation under the plan denies the appeals rezone. The hearing examiner has already recommended a denial of the request with the facts at hand, and some of my family has already done an excellent job offering arguments against rezoning. So, as far as I can tell, there is no rational basis for this appeal to go any further. So instead of presenting reasons to recommend denial of the proposal, I'm attending this hearing tonight to tell you what I think such commercial rezonings would entail for the future. And perhaps this will disclose certain possibilities that we might want to seriously consider. Such plots of land in the Worley area, considered as a whole and in the context of the surrounding area, are more than just empty lots. They're sacred spaces. They're sacred both to myself, to the Kootenai tribe, and to my future children. The land is quiet and unspoiled. It is idyllic, golden pastoral hills and alpine woodlands, which have fueled my imagination, nourished my mind, and contained memories from my childhood. Many of us, including my family, chose to raise the children in that area precisely for that irreplaceable North Idaho glory. That glory can't be replaced once it's gone. Once the land is developed, there's no going back. I asked myself, if such a commercial developments were somehow permitted, what would come next? I believe it would lead to more projects, more sprawls, and more pressure on our environment and infrastructure. As someone who grew up on a farm directly across from these plots, and as a lover of everything natural and strong, I do not support the kind of future that commercial developments will bring. Traffic will increase. Light and noise pollution will spread. Local wildlife that I and my neighbors hunted will be disrupted. The Worley area around the Palouse that we live in is cherished and will disappear forever. To be candid with all of you, I find such a future ugly compared to the verdant land I grew up on. And we could preserve sacred spaces for our future if we continue to deny such commercial developments in our rural areas. Such plots of land are worth protecting, not just for our own personal sense of sacredness, such as my own, but for the sake of our families' futures. Our families deserve to know what a quiet Palouse countryside is like. And I intend to let my future children know what it's like too firsthand. Thank you. So I ask you to make a difficult but necessary decision to come up here. The hearing examiner has already recommended denial of the requested rezoning, and this rezoning violates the plan. So let us hold our ground. Let us protect North Idaho from those who are well-meaning or not, will turn it into a parking lot. All the facts today, whether stated correctly or incorrectly, will not preserve the future welfare of the community if we do not see the frightening possibilities that we invite, if we do not look past the immediate benefits that commercial rezoning may allegedly bring or may not bring, and look to the community's future. Competing for businesses and conveniences today will impoverish the tranquility and welfare of the community's future. My future. The fact that this rezoning started as, I understand it, an RV park and is now a boating storage. And now people tonight have expressed the desire to build coffee shops and restaurants on these zones. This only proves my point. If the current owner honors certain restrictions, future owners, I'm certain, will not. It is said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. My treasure is in our children's future, and my heart is in the right place, and I hope yours is as well. Thank you. And just for the record, Fine Creek does, in fact, have ibuprofen.
Thank you. Any questions?
Have you been involved in your family's roadside stand, supplying the eggs and the produce and all that?
Absolutely. I remember it scared people to death because as a child, I waved my hands like this by the side of the road frantically to get their attention. And they hit their brakes and go, "What? What's wrong?" And I said, "Would you like some eggs, sir?" And you think, "Oh my God, okay, fine." He gives me, the money and takes the eggs, and suddenly we had a customer.
So you're making money off the land, off your land.
Very, very, very much so. At least as a kid. Now, as my father testified, it's been primarily hay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Lincoln, is it Hammonds? Opposed, may wish to speak. It's better than mine.
Well, I had a couple of things that listening to, I didn't know if I was going to talk because I talked this first time, but listening to a few of the statements in the support, I did have some issues with some of them. One of them that I'll address is 95% approval rating of 220 notices, applications, whatever they are. I completely disagree. I'm a local. I know Lee. I know Isabel. I know Tomas. I know all of the people on Elder Road. I could talk about Paul Stearns. I worked for him. I know the locals. I've lived here since 1986. Nobody that I have talked to supports this. I mean, maybe they cherry-picked and they found 220 applications that said we approve on this, but it's all friends and family. It is very much cherry-picked. This is not the locals. You drive up Elder Road, and you will not find a single person that supports it. Chuck Currier, he's 86 years old. He was here tonight, and he could not. He got tired before he could get up and speak or anything like that, and he went home. But the people that are locals, they don't support this. For example, the Glasgowers, they wanted to end up subdividing for residential this lot that they had for their family, as they toted. The community got together, and on these public hearings, they shot it down. They said, "No, I'm sorry, we don't need 20 more living spaces, even residential, which is more agreeable than a commercial, than a business." They shot that down. Us locals, we really do appreciate the rural aspect and the fact that I can't step off my front porch and accidentally run into my neighbor's house, that we have a little bit of room. So I think that it's very much an untruth, an exaggeration when it's presented as 95% approval rating, because I have not seen that. I have, from the people that I talk to, it's 0. No one supports this for the locals. The second off was the discussion about the well logs. Yeah, I'll agree. The well log that says that I get 12 gallons a minute, I drilled my well 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I can't run a hose which only gets 8 gallons a minute. I ran out of water in January. So I don't get constantly 12 gallons a minute, even if that's what my well log states. That does not happen. I am neighbors with Tomas, who spoke earlier. I'm the next one up from this property. And yes, just like he said, if you start drawing from the bottom, we're going to run out. He is 60 feet deeper than me. And when he waters his lawn, it affects my garden. 19 RV places is going to affect my garden. And it's like, yeah, that's not really purposeful for me to try and grow this at this point in time. Come July, I'm going to run out of water and my garden is going to die over this development. Yes, you may have water because you're lower than me. You're lower than me. I didn't have $1 million to drill an 800 and 900 foot well. And speaking of a 900 foot well, there is a property that is touching this lot. It's touching this lot. They went 960 feet and hit nothing. Yes, it's really hit and miss. There is issues with water out there in the location. So the water is my next concern. The local support is definitely a concern. Isabel talked about job availability. I've talked with Nick Matheson. I know what's going on at Fighting Creek, and he didn't voluntarily shut down his cafe and his coffee shop because, oh, well, I just don't want to do that anymore. He could not find people. So developing more jobs for high school alumni, kids that are still in high school that are under 18, that's not going to do any good. I mean, yeah, 5 extra trailer drivers down from Sunup Bay Boat Launch, there's not those trailer drivers available. Nick has tried hiring them and it does not work. Everyone that I've talked to doesn't support it. It's just a fallacy to end up talking about, oh, this will help the community. No, actually, this will hurt me as a homeowner to have an RV park, which I know it's already been approved, but to open up the doors for a commercial and not just an RV park, but whatever they choose to develop. That will hurt me as a homeowner. Think that's probably about all that I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hammonds. Any questions? No? Thank you. Next up, Elizabeth Hill, opposed, does not wish to speak. If you change your mind, say something. Michael Hill, opposed, does not wish to speak. Did you want to speak? Come on up. And you get 6 minutes.
Yeah, won't take that long. My name is Michael Hill. I got some property on Miskin Road. My dad just spoke that we got 60 acres, 3 parcels. I was in questioning about the 200 and something approval, but I mean, I'm not that far and I never got a notice, so I don't know if there's just a certain radius from who gets the notices, so I don't know. Understand how that many people approved it without everyone getting those notices. And also regarding future owners, I know within last year those 2 parcels in questioning right now were listed for sale, but they're off the market now. So I mean, I thought if these parcels got approved to commercial and they went listed for sale again, it seemed like it'd be a better opportunity for a big investor to come buy these parcels. And I mean, anything can happen with a lot of money, so it could be endless possibilities being zone commercial. So that's about all I had. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? No. Thank you so much. Next up is Courier. Last name Chuck Courier? Okay. Opposed? Does not wish to speak. Sadie Hill, opposed, does not wish to speak. Is Sadie Hill here? Did you want to speak? No? Okay. Margaret St. John, opposed, does not wish to speak. Okay. Is there anyone online, on the telephone, who...
Lisa, maybe?
Yeah, I think there was a Lisa. Lisa, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry for the delay.
Okay, you have 6 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And-
My
and
name is Lisa Alberta. I'm at one.
And state what city you're from, too. Sorry. Full name and city.
I'm a neighbor. Yeah, I'm a neighbor. It's Lisa Alberta at 13230 West Elder Road. My husband Tomas spoke. I just wanted to add a few things. A lot of it's been covered with the opposed speeches so far, so I'll keep it short. But my main concern is just the full commercial zoning leaves a ton of unanswered questions. I have a lot of sympathy. I've heard, now that we've heard from the property owner, I've learned a little bit more about the history with this because we're new to the community. And I have a lot of sympathy for what she's gone through. But full commercial zoning just has so many unanswered questions, and it opens a lot of doors that, I mean, we don't know what may happen in the future. If it's sold to someone else, anything could happen. And it's really scary for the neighbors, and I don't know any neighbors that support this. And we do have water issues, which have been covered. And it just seems strange to me that we would develop this spot when the city of Worley would be a really great location to do. It'd be much more suited for development. Just saying that a lot of building has been done in this spot, or with residential development and then the gas station going in, doesn't mean that more should be done. It just once you open that door, you can never go back, and it just grows and grows, and it's crazy. So I just want to respectfully request that we deny the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No. Okay. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else online?
I think we had Heather G, Chairman Matari, and she didn't get to speak yet.
And she did want to speak or did not? Heather, do you want to speak?
Does not. No, thank you. I am opposed, but don't wish to speak. And I need to correct, I'm within a mile of the proposed property.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Anybody online? No? Okay. Next up, the applicant has 30 minutes for a rebuttal. Would it be a prudent time to take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah.
So let's take 5 minutes. It's 9:01. We'll come back at 9:06. Started here. Okay, it's 9:07, and we're going to go ahead and get started. The applicant has 30 minutes for a rebuttal. Courtney, did you want to start?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time tonight. I know we're going long, so we'll try and keep it fairly quick. But I want to bring the board back to the standard for what is required for a zoning amendment. And that is that the amendment be in accordance with the policies set forth in the comprehensive plan. Again, this does not require that the zoning amendment strictly conform to the designation of the comprehensive plan, which in this case is country. And what the board is tasked with is making a factual inquiry into whether the requested zoning amendment reflects the goals of and takes into account the factors in the comp plan in light of the present circumstances surrounding the request. And we've talked at length about the factual circumstances that we cannot ignore that have enabled this zone change in a sense. And that is the fact that there is a relatively intense commercial use that exists across 3 parcels that are adjacent to both of these parcels. I wanted to touch back on a question that I heard earlier. I'm going to grab this. Regarding spot zoning and whether we should consider basically a non-conforming use that's outside of our jurisdiction in our spot zoning analysis. And there's case law that says, yes, we do consider the non-conforming use. And if the non-conforming use has changed the character of the neighborhood, then, or not the neighborhood, but the community, then yes, it is not spot zoning, and we can consider that. So there is a direct answer in case law to that question. There's also been question about where do we draw the line with the commercial development? If we grant this rezone, then aren't we just going to grant every other rezone along Highway 95? And, it's a slippery slope. But what's different about this application and both of these applications is that we're hitting Highway 95 with Elder Road, which is a collector. And so it's a more appropriate location for a commercial development, which is demonstrated with the location of the existing commercial use. So to say that all of this other land could be zoned commercial just because we have this amendment, that's not accurate, and there is specific unique characteristics of these 2 parcels that differentiate them from many others. Whether it was, down Elder Road or down Highway 95, the intersection of these 2 roads make this unique. Going back to the comprehensive plan, again, there are many policies and goals of the comprehensive plan that are accomplished with these rezones. It affords the owner, as we've heard, reasonable economic opportunity to use her property, as many of the other people in this area get to do. It reflects the current commercial use of the area. It locates commercial use adjacent to where it already exists, as does a major transportation corridor. There's not going to need to be a lot of work to get people to the location. It's there. Also, we've touched on this many times tonight, allows use that would serve the surrounding rural community, which makes it consistent with the goals and policies of the country designation. And then, again, while there may be a subsequent owner to the applicant, the location of these 2 parcels and the limitation on the infrastructure is a natural limit on what could potentially go there in the future. So we're not going to get a hotel. We're not going to get a college. We're not going to see commercial development of that scope because we're never going to have the utilities to serve it. So keeping in mind that we're in a quasi-judicial capacity, or the board is in a quasi-judicial capacity, and if the applicant has met the requirements for the rezone, the board should grant the rezone. And so that is all I have for you. I will hand it over to, I think, Ms. Brand and then Mr. Kimball.
Thank you.
I'll be real quick. In the years, I've watched the area around my land develop rapidly. Farm fields that have been cultivated for generations are now subdivisions. Skeeter Milhorn of Milhorn Farms farmed approximately 300 acres east of my 27-acre property off of Highway 95. It was turned into a 15-home subdivisions that the Hills reside, which generated over $7 million in profits. Another 300 acres of Milhorn Farms above the Fighting Creek store has been plotted down to 20 acres for future 15-home subdivision. Kootenai Properties has over 200 20-acre parcels subdivided down off of Sunup Bay Road and Ness Road going down the canyon for future development. Like some of the people said here, and we're not going to stop the development. All the big farmers have taken advantage of the 20-acre subdivision. The Milhorns, Kootenai Properties, the Crutches, DeShields, they all are large farms that if you were to go onto the Kootenai County GIS, you will see that every parcel of theirs has been subdivided down for future use for subdivisions. Why wouldn't they? That's smart. In that area by my home or by my land, this creates tremendous growth. Maybe not tomorrow, but in the future, and that's why it was done. I wasn't sure if you guys knew that, but you can go onto the GIS and see that Kootenai Properties has, within 3 miles of my land, 200 homes for future development. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you. And I will keep my, Ray Kimball for the record, I'll keep my comments as brief as I can. And thank you for being here so late. First I want to talk about water. So I'm an engineer for a water district. I understand wells and hydraulics and hydrology very, very well. I cannot speak to, I believe it was Mr. Hammond's and his well failing. Other than I would encourage him to get an expert out there to see if his well screen is plugged up or if it's collapsed or something like that has happened in the last couple of years. What I can say is that agricultural uses by far, they use way more water than commercial uses. So irrigation is by far the largest water user, and right now today, that 100-gallon-a-minute well at the bottom of the hill, owned by my client, could be used to irrigate, and so the reality is that a commercial use is going to use far less water than what a agricultural use could use. Septic systems being limitations, that's right. Septic systems are a limitation. The topography of the site, also a limitation. There's not 70 acres of developable commercial. It's a fraction of that. So this is not this great big huge idea that this is 70 acres of just all developable land is not accurate. It's not the right, that's not the right way, or that's not a practical way to look at it. There are natural physical limitations. So sewer, water, those limitations rule out a million different uses. Trust an attorney to take a a quote out of context. But the reality is that the site is only suitable for limited uses, limited commercial uses. Those are the types of uses that the only way to get there is through a rezone. The rural and agricultural zones through a special use permit are very, very restrictive. So there are only certain uses that are allowed under the code, and I've got the code right here with me. But the reality is that there's only very specific uses under a special use permit. And I'll go to the boat storage, RV park, commercial resort, all of those things, they're very, very, very specific. You cannot branch out and go, well, I got a boat storage, I'm gonna repair some boats. You can't do that. Not allowed. It's not allowed under the zoning code. The only path forward for my client to be able to economically benefit in a reasonable manner so that they can pivot and adjust according to the market to serve the local community is for a commercial rezone. We've met every single criteria that the county zoning code or that the county code and state code has set forth in order to do that. The hearing examiner made egregious errors, and we are asking you to right those wrongs and approve this zone change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Not for applicant, but for staff.
Yeah, for staff. Go ahead.
All right. Two questions. One is how narrow can a CZDA, how narrow can a conditional zoning agreement be written?
Every CZDA is different. It's dependent on the property location, depending on surrounding development, surrounding uses, zoning. It's dependent on the limitations that the applicant wants to impose on themselves, that they may pursue and present to the board, that the board would accept. Staff's only concern is that when it comes to a conditional zoning development agreement, it's not merely having the board impose it and then it gets recorded against the property. It's a process just like a zone change. So if the board was to entertain that option to consider a zoning development agreement, perhaps it would need to, the board would need to motion the project to be sent back to community development to have the applicant put together their conditional zoning development agreement, have our legal counsel review it, and then redistribute it to agencies for analysis. That's how it's been done in the past. Restrictions when it comes to restrictions such as subdivisions, just because the board approves a rezone without a conditional zoning development agreement, that does not automatically imply that a subdivision in the future is a done deal. As you know, a subdivision would have to go through its own review process, and the board does have the option to deny it even if the zone change is approved. So to request a CZDA simply to restrict the opportunity to subdivide the property to some minimum lot size, from my standpoint, and Director Callahan can jump in, is not an absolute necessity, because the subdivision regulations as well as the findings of fact would be reviewed under that process. But if there is an intent to restrict use to something that is more viable than what the current proposal is, or the currently approved conditional use permits are for the warehouse and the commercial resort, to have other uses, that's an option. One of the other options that Director Callahan and I discussed was to maybe the applicant wants to consider a condition modification to the existing CUPs to allow other uses that would be entertained under the commercial resort or the rental warehouse facility. But that's our take on that.
Commissioners, if I may, to answer your question, there is no limit. It really comes down to what you and the applicant can agree to.
Yeah.
And then the conditional use permit modification, realistically, how can we, if we chose to want to go that direction, how can we speed up that process so it's not another year and a half?
I think it could be a 3-month process if we can get together and understand what their limits are and what your limits are.
Okay.
'Cause the 3 months is we need to reschedule for a hearing examiner and for you.
Okay, and we could actually overlap them if we needed to.
And we could double notice.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have right now, but I might have more.
That was exactly where I was going with it. So I think that, what we're being presented with is this binary choice of everything or nothing. And yet what I'm hearing from the applicant is, look, I just want to be able to do what I want to do, which the board previously largely agreed to. And now there's just some stuff around the edges that kind of needs to be addressed. And we've gone down this full-blown zoning situation.
If I may piggyback on your thought, we've heard statements that I think are unfounded, like the CUP limits the use to one thing. There are 31 uses in the rural zoning district that may be approved by CUP. One of them, the resort, which is what the RV is under right now, adds an additional 10 uses. We processed what we were asked to process. We haven't had a dialogue about which of these other uses might be combined to fit within the existing CUP.
Yeah. I think if anything, we're going to go into deliberations in June. I think that's an opportunity for a discussion with the applicant to really figure out, what is it that we want to get done here?
Yes, sir. We can certainly do that.
Without having to make such a drastic change from what I'm hearing, to accomplish, in essence, the same thing that they wanted to accomplish a year ago, in essence.
It seems to me that there's a possibility of reopening the CUP to get some additional uses that they would find useful.
So I guess my goal would be, if the CUP truly is not going to cover what their idea is, can we cover it under CZDA?
Understood.
So.
Yeah, and just figuring out what those parameters are.
Yeah.
And the exact uses and so forth. Commissioner Eberline, did you have any thoughts or comments you want to?
Oh, I think I might like to take a drive down south.
Yeah.
See what shape it
Can't do that.
It's always good to do that.
You can't
You
do
don't want
that.
to do that. Sorry, not on this one.
Yeah.
There's questions.
Just because of the nature of what's put in front of us, so. Okay. Any other questions? Did you want to say something? All right, well, we'll.
In response, Ray Kimball again for the record, in response to staff's comments, we would certainly entertain conversations about what we can do to move forward towards a mutual goal. My concern is generally making sure that we are following the law and making sure that we're not going outside of what the code allows in a conditional use permit in order to really give my client the flexibility that they need. When I said in that last public hearing, there's a million different uses, the reality is that I'm not creative enough to come up with the business that would probably do really, really well there. I'm not that person. I'm an engineer. But the reality is that there are a lot of add-on uses or just little tweaks and little things here and there throughout the development of a business, especially in a rural area. In a rural area, for a business to thrive, they have to be able to be a little bit flexible. The ones that survive are the ones that are. And so that is one of the things that this is why we're asking for a commercial zone. And we have to ask you to trust the fact that there are natural limitations both in the market as well as the site constraints to limit those uses to those that are non-impactful and beneficial to the community.
And that's kind of why I suggested the CZDA if the expansion of the conditional use permit is not going to fit.
Right. And I think it would be a good thing to, if we do that, to maybe figure out the uses that are egregious, that we don't want, and include those in there. Not make it make it exclusionary, exclude those, and allow the ones that are, that we can just kind of, whatever, the business with the kids going down and grabbing trailers and coming back up and solving an issue, a boat launch issue. Great business. I never would have thought of it. Someone else did. But we think that that's probably the appropriate route to go, if that's the case.
Well, I think I understand what you're saying. You want the widest possible guardrails so you can figure out what works. And, what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, if you have an idea, figure out what that wiggle room is, that makes sense. And, if there has to be an adjustment, depending on what it is, I think it's just a matter of, do you want to have that much leeway? Because the people who are opposed to that, they have some merit to some of their concerns about what it could be, realizing that there's a practicality there. But also, if you're going to be storing boats, there's probably not that many ancillary things that you should be adding on to that,
Completely understood. And I think you're not wrong. And it's interesting here tonight because we hear, a lot of, people next door talk and, not in favor. And of the 220 plus respondents, it was an overwhelming positive response from the community. And please don't forget that. That's a big deal. They took time out of their day to respond, and that we should not weigh that any differently than those people who responded to negatively towards this. I know that if you folks were all elected, and I think one of you got 100%, others that didn't run unopposed didn't question the fact that there was 20 or so % people that didn't vote for you. And I think that's probably an important thing to remember here is that it does have overwhelming community support. And just because they didn't all show up here tonight doesn't mean that it's not out there. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I guess we will end testimony.
Well, that's what I was going to
Go to a
ask.
date
Is it better to end testimony and, just put off the deliberations or keep it open?
I'm thinking, if you want any additional comments from staff, I think it'd be better to leave it open.
So then I move that we continue this public hearing to June 12th at 10 a.m. Is that the right date and time?
Commissioner Eberlein? Yes, that is. You good with that?
Why June 12th?
That's the next community development date.
That I'm here.
That Commissioner Duncan's here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
So let's do it.
It sounds like there's a lot of stuff that could be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Eberlein? Commissioner Duncan?
Aye.
Chair Matari?
Aye. So 9:31. We're in recess.